Across the silent deserts, beneath forgotten jungles, and buried deep under the waves, lie traces of civilizations that defy everything we think we know about human history, stones carved with impossible precision, monuments aligned perfectly with the stars, artifacts that seem to whisper of technologies far beyond their time. For centuries, archaeologists have dug, brushed, and measured, yet some discoveries refuse to make sense. Who built them? How were they made? And why do they echo patterns found on opposite sides of the world long before those worlds ever met? These are not tales of fantasy. They are real places, real relics, and real questions that continue to haunt the pages of science and history alike. Perhaps hidden beneath the dust of time lies a story we were never meant to uncover. So sit back, open your mind, and let's journey into the strangest and most baffling archaeological mysteries still unsolved. The wind sweeps relentlessly across the Orkney Islands, carrying the chill of the North Atlantic as it sculpts the rugged coastline. Nestled against the edge of a barren, windswept landscape lies a settlement that has stood, remarkably preserved, for over 5,000 years. Skara Brae, often called the Scottish Pompeii, is a cluster of stone dwellings, sunken into the earth as if the soil itself had grown around them. Even today, the weathered stone walls, low doorways, and stone furniture evoke a sense of intimacy, of lives lived in close communion with one another, in a world both familiar and alien to our modern eyes. Discovered in 1850, after a ferocious storm stripped away the topsoil, Skara Brae is unlike any other Neolithic settlement in Europe. Its preservation is extraordinary. Beds, cupboards, and even stone dressers remain in place, offering a rare, tangible glimpse into the domestic lives of people who left no written records. Each dwelling is connected by narrow passageways, meticulously constructed to withstand the harsh Orkney climate. There is a deliberate precision to the architecture, a symmetry and functionality that speak to knowledge, planning, and communal cooperation far beyond what we might expect from a society living over 5,000 years ago. Archaeologists have long marveled at the details. The stone beds, built slightly above floor level, suggest a sophisticated understanding of ventilation and comfort, while the presence of hearths in each dwelling indicates that fire, cooking, and social gathering were central to daily life. Tools carved from bone and stone, ornaments fashioned from shells, and even fragments of what might have been early textiles hint at a culture that was resourceful, creative, and deeply attuned to its environment. Yet, despite these insights, Skara Brae remains a puzzle. How did such a settlement emerge in this remote corner of the world? How did its inhabitants manage to thrive in an environment that can be unforgiving even today? Some researchers suggest a relatively dense population that required careful management of resources, but the specifics remain elusive. There are no written records to explain social hierarchies, spiritual beliefs, or the reasons behind the settlement's eventual abandonment. Archaeologists have posited that gradual climate change, encroaching sand dunes, or rising seas may have made life increasingly untenable. But no definitive evidence confirms exactly why these people left behind their homes, intact, to be swallowed once again by the land. The layout of Skara Brae itself adds to the mystery. The dwellings are nearly uniform in shape and size, yet subtle differences suggest individual families maintained personal spaces while still adhering to communal norms. In some houses, built-in stone dressers and cupboards line the walls, as if echoing an unspoken code of organization or ritual. There are no overt signs of fortifications or defensive structures, which raises questions about the social or political climate of the time. Were these people unusually peaceful, or have we simply lost the traces of conflict that may have existed? Even more enigmatic are the artifacts that defy easy interpretation. Small figurines, carefully carved from bone or stone, have been uncovered within the settlement. Some appear humanoid, others abstract, and their purpose remains uncertain. Were they talismans, objects of worship, or toys? The ambiguity allows for speculation, and it is here, at the intersection of the known and the unknowable, that Skara Brae exerts its true fascination. Fringe theories abound, though none are accepted by mainstream scholarship. Some enthusiasts have speculated that the settlement's unusual durability and design hint at lost architectural knowledge, perhaps even contact with advanced cultures whose traces are otherwise absent in the historical record. Others point to the alignment of certain dwellings with the rising and setting sun as evidence of astronomical observation, suggesting a sophistication in timekeeping or ritual that exceeds conventional expectations of Neolithic societies. While such interpretations remain speculative, they underscore a key truth. Skara Brae invites questions that cannot be fully answered, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding. Walking through the narrow corridors today, one is struck by the intimacy of the space. The walls seem almost to whisper the lives of those who once inhabited them. Children must have played across the flagstone floors. Women prepared meals over flickering fires, and men worked the land and sea that sustained the community. And yet, just beyond the threshold of each doorway, the harsh winds of Orkney remind us that the forces of nature, as much as human ingenuity, shaped the fate of these people. Perhaps what is most compelling about Skara Brae is not any single artifact, architectural feature, or theory, but the overwhelming sense of presence it imparts. It is a settlement frozen in time, yet alive with unanswered questions. How did they conceive of home? What stories did they tell around their hearths? And when they finally departed, leaving behind their carefully built furniture and stone walls, what did they carry with them into the unknown? For those who stand among its ruins today, Skara Brae is not simply an archaeological site. It is a silent testament to human resilience, creativity, and mystery. Every stone, every passageway, every carefully carved dresser is a prompt, a reminder that some stories are only partially written, and that some of the past may forever remain just beyond our grasp. And so we return, again and again, to wonder. What secrets linger in the wind-blasted corridors of Skara Brae, waiting patiently for a future generation to uncover them? From the wind-swept stones of Orkney, we journey across oceans and centuries, tracing the echoes of civilizations whose ingenuity and mystery continue to captivate us. While Skara Brae speaks of life carved into the earth, another culture carved life into the cliffs themselves. High above the deserts of the American Southwest, where red rock canyons stretch endlessly under a relentless sun. Here, in the arid landscapes of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona, the Anasazi, or ancestral Puebloans, built their remarkable cliff dwellings, stone fortresses suspended between sky and earth, seemingly defiant of gravity, time, and understanding. Approaching these dwellings, one is struck by their sheer audacity. Rooms are carefully stacked within natural alcoves, connected by ladders and narrow passageways. Towers, kivas, and ceremonial spaces rise from the rock face, carved and built with painstaking precision. The structures are composed of sandstone blocks, expertly shaped and fitted with mortar made from local clay. Even the smallest details, the placement of windows, the orientation of doorways, the alignment with celestial bodies, suggest a profound knowledge of architecture, astronomy, and the natural environment. Every ledge, every recess, speaks to a people who understood the land intimately, yet also sought to transcend it. Archaeologists estimate that many of these cliff dwellings were occupied from roughly 1200 to 1300 CE. They were home to thriving communities, centers of agriculture, trade, and ritual life. Corn, beans, and squash grew on the mesa tops. Obsidian and pottery traveled along intricate trade networks, and ceremonial kivas hint at spiritual practices deeply entwined with the cycles of nature. Yet, for all that we know, there remains a persistent and haunting question. Why build these settlements in such inaccessible locations? Was it for defense, to avoid raids, or perhaps to protect sacred spaces? Or was there a more enigmatic purpose, an expression of cosmology, ritual, or social order that we can only glimpse through stones and shadows? The mystery deepens when we consider the sudden abandonment of these cliff dwellings. Around the late 13th century, many sites were deserted. Scholars point to a combination of prolonged drought, resource depletion, and social stress as likely factors. Archaeological evidence shows that corn crops failed and water sources dwindled. Yet, these explanations, while plausible, leave room for speculation. Why, if the community had survived generations in this harsh terrain, did they suddenly leave behind homes so intricately built, so carefully adapted to the cliffs? Why were personal belongings, tools, and in some cases even food storage left behind, almost as if the inhabitants intended to return but never did? The architecture itself continues to inspire questions. Some dwellings are so high and difficult to access that it would have required extraordinary skill and daring to reach them. What motivated the construction of these hidden enclaves? Were they refuges from conflict, or carefully designed environments for spiritual contemplation? In certain locations, the stonework exhibits geometric sophistication, and certain doorways and windows align with solstices and equinoxes. Could this have been a form of ancient astronomy, a way to mark the passage of time and seasons in sync with agricultural cycles, or did it carry deeper, symbolic meaning? Artifacts recovered from these sites only deepen the enigma. Pottery, woven textiles, stone tools, and ceremonial items suggest a vibrant and complex society. Some items, such as intricately painted pottery and carved ceremonial objects, indicate artistic expression and symbolic communication, whose full meaning has been lost to time. Certain petroglyphs and pictographs etched into cliff faces remain undeciphered, their significance obscured by the millennia. And then there are the more curious discoveries. Small, carefully shaped objects, miniature figurines, or mysterious symbols whose purpose eludes historians. Were they talismans, teaching tools, or remnants of beliefs we can no longer comprehend? Fringe theories occasionally enter the discussion, though none are substantiated by hard evidence. Some speculate that the dwelling's remote locations hint at a need to escape external threats, perhaps even from other advanced groups. Others suggest that the placement high in the cliffs could have been for acoustical or spiritual purposes, amplifying ceremonies performed in kivas and alcoves. While these ideas remain speculative, they serve to underscore a central truth. The cliff dwellings invite questions as much as they offer answers. They are simultaneously tangible and elusive, grounded in the earth, and yet suspended in mystery. Walking among the remnants of these structures, one feels a profound sense of both ingenuity and fragility. Each stone is carefully positioned, every passage thoughtfully considered, yet the passage of centuries has left the buildings vulnerable to erosion and time. Still, the dwellings endure, standing as monuments to human resilience, creativity, and a desire to shape the environment in ways that were simultaneously practical, symbolic, and extraordinary. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of the Anasazi cliff dwellings is the story they do not tell. For all their detail, for all the knowledge we glean from stone and artifact, the heart of this civilization remains obscured. Why were these specific sites chosen? How were daily lives balanced with ritual and survival in such precarious locations? And what prompted the sudden exodus, leaving behind a silent testimony carved into cliffs that have witnessed centuries of sun, wind, and storm. As we trace the ladders, passageways, and alcoves left by the Anasazi, we are reminded that history is rarely complete. Every ledge, every doorway, every faded symbol holds a question, inviting us to imagine lives that were once lived in these vertical cities of stone. And as the sun dips behind the canyon walls, casting shadows across the ancient masonry, we are left to wonder, what secrets remain hidden in the cliffs, preserved by time yet invisible to the naked eye, waiting for those who dare to look closer? From the wind-worn cliffs of the ancestral Puebloans, we move now to a different corner of the world's mystery-laden past, where a single object refuses to sit comfortably within the boundaries of conventional archaeology. Let us consider the Lolladoff Plate, an artifact wrapped in mystery, somewhere between legend, fragmentary documentation, and speculation. Imagine a cool, dimly lit storeroom in a remote region of the Himalayas or the Indian subcontinent, an area of high altitude, wind-swept ridges, and caves where ancient peoples once sheltered. In this space lies a circular stone disk, smooth, perhaps a foot or so in diameter, carved with curious patterns. On its surface appears a spiral motif, concentric grooves, and faint etchings depicting what some interpret as a disc-shaped craft, a humanoid figure, and perhaps even a representation of the solar system. According to accounts, this plate was found in a cave high above modern roads, near mountains, scarcely touched by modern exploration. From the outset, the documented history of the Lolladoff Plate is thin. It is said to date to roughly 12,000 BCE, though no definitive scientific study has confirmed that age. The plate was reportedly discovered along with other discs inscribed with similar imagery, and local legends speak of men who came from the clouds and of a tribe known by the name of the Dropa or Zopa. According to these stories, these arrivals landed in the hills, settled briefly, and left strange carvings behind. Mainstream archaeologists treat these claims with skepticism, and for good reason. The provenance of the object is unclear. There is no clear excavation record, no unbroken chain of custody, and no firm radiometric dating of the disk. Many of the images, captions, and secondary reports circulate largely in speculative or fringe archaeology circles. Thus, the plate exists more in the liminal space between legend and artifact than in the securely catalogued annals of ancient human craftsmanship. The object itself displays a remarkable motif, a spiral groove around a central hole, arranged in a double spiral. Within the grooves, tiny hieroglyph-like markings are said to appear. Some claim those markings tell of a craft descending from the sky, of beings arriving and interacting with indigenous tribes. These descriptions echo narratives surrounding other controversial artifacts. Yet in this case, the purported disk exists in only fragmentary documentation. Viewed cautiously, the plate could represent something far more mundane, a symbolic object, a ritual disk, a sacred representation of cosmology. The spiral motif might denote cyclical time or the journey of the sun. The humanoid figure could represent a deity or ancestor, the disk shape a solar symbol. Yet the leap from these interpretations to the extraordinary remains tempting. What if the imagery records a very early attempt to understand the cosmos, or even a memory of something beyond Earth? The boundary between metaphor and literal record is unresolved. Speculative interpretations assert that the plate is evidence of prehistoric contact with non-terrestrial intelligences, that the disk shape, the humanoid figure with large, slanted eyes, and the unusual age claim all point toward visitors from another world. The plate thus becomes a touchstone for debate. Are we looking at a misinterpreted ritual object or a coded memory of an encounter long forgotten? Enthusiasts claim the spiral groove represents a flight path, the humanoid figure stands for an occupant of a craft, and the cave's remote location preserves the secret of a vanished civilization. But critics point out the lack of credible archaeological context, the absence of secure dating, and the fact that much of the story originates in second-hand accounts and sensational publications. Adding complexity is the broader cultural and geographical context. The plate, if real in the form described, rests in a region where mountain caves are known to hold ancient human remains, where trade routes crossed high passes, and where ritual and cosmology often merged with daily life. It would not be surprising if a ritual disk carved by an early civilization existed. What remains surprising is the claim that it depicts something entirely outside our accepted narrative. Are we witnessing an object that records a common ancient memory of sky visitors, or simply a symbolic frontier of human imagination? Walking through the story of the Lolladoff Plate, we encounter several unresolved threads. 1. The question of the disk's true provenance. Where precisely was it found? Under what stratigraphic conditions? Who documented the find and preserved the artifact? 2. The issue of dating. Without absolute measures, the 12,000 BCE origin remains speculative. 3. The interpretation of the imagery. Even if the carvings are ancient, do they depict literal extraterrestrial beings, symbolic ancestors, or something entirely terrestrial yet unknown to us? 4. The context of the artifact within the broader human story. If a plate like this exists, why is there no other firm archaeological trace of the clan or civilization that made it? No settlement, no full archive? In reflecting on the Lolladoff Plate, we are reminded that some mysteries do not yield neat solutions. The object hovers in the space between what we can prove and what we can't dismiss. Its existence challenges us to ask, what if our conventional frameworks miss something essential? What if, in the silent high caverns of the Himalayas, traces of a story remain untold? And what would it mean if the plate truly was evidence of contact, of something crossing the boundary between earth and sky? As we let the imagery of that spiral-grooved disk fade into the shadows of our minds, we are left not with certainty, but with an invitation to wonder how many stories still lie hidden in the caves of our planet, waiting for the right light, the right question, the right generation to ask, what did they mean by this? From the quiet, shadowed caverns where a mysterious plate lies, we now turn our gaze to the soaring peaks of the Andes, where another enigma endures. Not a small artifact, but an entire city, perched precariously between clouds and cliffs. Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas, rises above the Urubamba River Valley, wrapped in mist and mystery, its terraces and stone walls clinging to the mountainside as if nature itself had sculpted them. Even today, after centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and seismic activity, the city's precision-cut stones and enduring structures inspire awe, suggesting a civilization that combined remarkable engineering with an acute understanding of its environment. Discovered in 1911 by Hiram Bingham, Machu Picchu immediately captivated the world. Its stone buildings, temple complexes, agricultural terraces, and elaborate water channels reveal a society of exceptional skill and organization. The city's location, hidden for centuries from the outside world, hints at intentional seclusion, a sanctuary, a stronghold, or perhaps a ceremonial site. Scholars generally agree that Machu Picchu was built in the mid-15th century under the reign of Pachacuti, yet questions about its purpose, construction methods, and the full extent of its planning continue to elude definitive answers. One of the first mysteries is its sheer location. Why construct an entire city on such a steep, remote ridge? Some suggest defense against potential invaders. Others propose a spiritual or astronomical alignment. Machu Picchu's precise orientation relative to the solstices, the surrounding mountains, and celestial phenomena indicates that the Inca builders were not merely skilled stonemasons. They were astronomers, engineers, and planners who harmonized human creation with the rhythms of the cosmos. But to what extent were these alignments deliberate, and what knowledge guided their choices? The construction itself raises further intrigue. Each stone block fits seamlessly against its neighbor without mortar, a technique known as ashlar masonry, capable of withstanding earthquakes that frequently shake the Andes. How did the Inca achieve such precision with only primitive tools? There are no written records detailing the building process, leaving researchers to speculate about methods and labor organization. Some suggest the use of copper tools, ropes, and sheer manpower, while fringe theories propose more esoteric methods, hinting at lost knowledge or technologies now forgotten. Water management adds another layer of sophistication and mystery. An intricate network of aqueducts, fountains, and drainage systems channels mountain streams throughout the city, preventing erosion and ensuring a steady supply of fresh water. These innovations were essential for sustaining life at such an altitude, yet the full understanding of the city's hydraulic engineering is still being studied. Did the planners possess knowledge of fluid dynamics far ahead of their time, or was it a product of careful observation and iterative design over generations? Machu Picchu's purpose remains equally enigmatic. Some archaeologists view it as a royal estate, a retreat for the Inca elite. Others see it as a sacred site, a ceremonial hub where astronomy, religion, and politics intersected. Within the Temple of the Sun, the Intihuatana stone, a carved rock often called a solar clock, aligns precisely with the sun during solstices, yet its full ceremonial function is unknown. Were these spaces used solely for observation, for ritual, or for something far more complex, blending governance, spirituality, and social cohesion in ways we can only begin to imagine? Artifacts found at Machu Picchu provide clues, but not complete answers. Pottery, tools, and ceremonial objects reveal everyday life and the city's sophisticated culture, yet the absence of extensive written records leaves their symbolic meanings shrouded. Some researchers suggest that the site was abandoned abruptly, likely due to Spanish conquest elsewhere in the Inca Empire, though the city itself was never directly attacked. If so, why leave behind such a meticulously crafted settlement, perfectly adapted to its surroundings, for centuries to remain hidden and untouched? Even the surrounding landscape plays a role in the city's mystery. Machu Picchu sits amidst dramatic peaks, terraced valleys, and rushing rivers, yet the integration of human construction with these natural features feels uncanny, almost otherworldly. The terraces prevent erosion, the natural stone paths channel rainwater, and the city's design appears to mirror the contours of the surrounding mountains. Was this harmony purely practical, or did it serve a symbolic purpose, linking the inhabitants to the land, the sky, and their cosmology in ways that remain invisible to us today? Speculative theories, while unproven, continue to capture the imagination. Some propose that Machu Picchu was a repository of Inca knowledge, a sacred observatory, or even a center of ancient energy. Others suggest that the site's construction contains encoded messages about the cosmos, or lost civilizations that preceded the Incas. While these ideas cannot be substantiated, they underscore the profound sense of wonder the city inspires, a feeling that echoes through its terraces, temples, and mist-shrouded paths. As we walk among Machu Picchu's enduring stones, observing the terraces that cling to the mountainside and the sun-drenched courtyards once filled with life, we are reminded that some questions may remain forever unanswered. How did the Inca achieve such architectural mastery in such a remote location? What was the full extent of their knowledge, and how was it encoded into the city's design? And why does this city, hidden from the world for centuries, continue to evoke such a deep sense of mystery and awe? Machu Picchu endures not merely as a relic of the past, but as an invitation to wonder at the ingenuity of humanity, to consider the depth of what we do not yet understand, and to ask, what secrets remain in the high Andes, waiting silently for those willing to look beyond the stones, the terraces, and the clouds? From the high terraces and mist-shrouded stones of Machu Picchu, we descend once more into the past, this time to the banks of the Nile, where a subterranean monument waits in silence, largely hidden beneath the sands of history. The Osireion of Abydos is a structure unlike any other in Egypt, a place where architecture, symbolism, and the mysterious interplay of water and stone converge, leaving scholars and explorers alike to ask, what exactly was it, and why was it built in such an unconventional form? Approaching the Osireion today, one is immediately struck by its unusual character. Unlike the pyramids that dominate Egypt's landscape, this temple lies partially underground, set behind the famous temple of Seti I at Abydos. Massive blocks of stone, some weighing several tons, form walls and pillars arranged around a central hall, with a subterranean water basin stretching across much of its floor. The water, still and reflective, gives the impression of a sunken sanctuary, a mirrored temple that seems almost to hover between earth and sky. Its symmetry, scale, and the precision of its construction hint at knowledge and skill far beyond what one might expect of the period in which it was built. The Osireion is traditionally associated with Pharaoh Seti I, though its precise age and purpose remain contested. Unlike the mortuary temples that followed strict architectural conventions, the Osireion defies standard categorization. Some scholars suggest it was built as a symbolic tomb, a cenotaph representing the underworld, while others view it as a ceremonial temple dedicated to Osiris, god of the dead and rebirth. Its alignment along the north-south axis, its central water basin, and the colossal stone pillars carved from local granite all speak to deliberate planning. Yet the reasons for its unusual depth and layout are still debated. Water plays a central role in the Osireion's design, both physically and symbolically. The subterranean chamber is filled with groundwater, a feature that distinguishes it from other temples of the New Kingdom. Was this merely a practical consequence of the site's location, or was it an intentional element of ritual representing the primordial waters from which life and the universe emerged? Could the reflections on the water's surface have been used in ceremonies, amplifying the sacred space, creating illusions of floating pillars and infinite depth? The interplay of stone and water evokes a sense of mystery that transcends the purely architectural. The scale of the Osireion raises further questions. The massive granite blocks and carefully carved pillars suggest a workforce capable of extraordinary feats of engineering. How were these stones transported and precisely positioned in an underground environment? Some mainstream explanations point to ingenuity and brute labor, yet even with modern technology, recreating such a structure would be a challenge. The precision with which the stone surfaces align, the subtle detailing of their carving, and the proportions of the halls themselves continue to baffle architects and Egyptologists. The Osireion also hints at knowledge of the heavens. Its alignment and dimensions suggest possible astronomical significance, though interpretations vary. Could this temple, sunken into the earth, have been designed to connect with celestial events, linking the underworld, the living, and the cosmos in a single sacred experience? Or were the measurements symbolic, encoding mathematical and spiritual principles that have since been forgotten? The lack of inscriptions detailing its purpose leaves these questions tantalizingly open. Fringe theories, while speculative, have proliferated over time. Some suggest that the Osireion predates the reign of Seti I by thousands of years, implying the existence of a much older advanced civilization in Egypt whose traces remain elusive. Others propose that the subterranean water represents more than ritual symbolism. Perhaps it was a repository of sacred knowledge, or even an early form of energy or acoustical experimentation. While no evidence conclusively supports these ideas, the very fact that the Osireion is anomalous among Egyptian monuments ensures that it remains a focal point for alternative histories and unanswered questions. Artifacts within the Osireion are sparse compared to other temples, yet every element seems deliberate. The massive stone pillars rise in perfect rows, echoing with footsteps and with the drip of water seeping from the surrounding earth. The floor stones, cut and polished to exacting standards, reflect faintly in the water, creating an ethereal effect that blurs the line between material and reflection. It is easy to imagine the priests and pharaohs moving through this hall in ceremonial procession, their chants amplified by the subterranean acoustics, yet the full meaning of these rituals remains beyond our grasp. The Osireion also challenges assumptions about Egyptian chronology. Its design is markedly different from contemporary structures, with techniques and proportions that some scholars suggest hark back to earlier traditions. Was it a deliberate archaism, a way of invoking the authority of an older past? Or does it hint at something far deeper, a record of knowledge and craftsmanship that has been partially lost to time? Its enigmatic character reminds us that history is not always linear and that some monuments may preserve echoes of civilizations we scarcely understand. Standing within the Osireion today, one cannot help but feel the weight of both stone and mystery. The cool, still water, the colossal pillars, the echoing chambers, all evoke a sense of presence, as if the monument itself holds memories, knowledge, and perhaps secrets not meant to be fully revealed. Every angle, every shadow, every reflection seems designed to provoke contemplation, inviting us to consider forces, beliefs, and capabilities that challenge conventional timelines. In the end, the Osireion leaves us with more questions than answers. Why was this temple built so differently from others? What ceremonies took place within its subterranean halls? How did its builders achieve such precision in a hidden, water-laden environment? And what, if anything, of its knowledge or purpose has been lost to the passage of time? As the water ripples gently across the polished stone, and the shadows of the pillars stretch into the hidden corners of the hall, we are left to wonder, what secrets still lie submerged beneath the surface, waiting for those willing to look deeper into the enigmatic heart of Abydos? From the subterranean waters and shadowed pillars of the Osireion, we turn our gaze eastward, across continents and oceans, to the misty hills and fertile plains of ancient Japan. Here, another enigma awaits. Not a grand stone city or hidden tomb, but a culture expressed in clay, in shapes that seem at once simple and profoundly symbolic. This is the world of the Haniwa, terracotta figures that continue to intrigue, their silent forms guarding secrets of a civilization long past. Imagine standing on a gentle rise overlooking a Kofun burial mound, the earth carefully shaped into a keyhole-like tomb, its contours precise and deliberate. Around it, rows upon rows of cylindrical clay figures stand vigil, their hollow forms catching the wind, their faces blank yet strangely expressive. Some depict warriors with armor, horses in mid-stride, or servants and musicians frozen in ritual pose. Others are abstract, simple cylinders, cones, or geometric shapes, whose meaning is less obvious. Together, they create a landscape both eerie and compelling, a testimony to a people whose culture and intentions remain partially obscured by time. The Haniwa date from the 3rd to 6th centuries CE, during Japan's Kofun period, when massive burial mounds were built for elite leaders. Each figure, fired from clay and placed carefully on the mounds, seems to serve both decorative and symbolic purposes. Scholars suggest that Haniwa marked sacred boundaries, protected the deceased, or represented attendants and possessions for the afterlife. Yet for all the study devoted to them, the precise reasoning behind their forms, arrangements, and sheer variety remains a puzzle. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Despite their seemingly simple shapes, many Haniwa figures display intricate details, folds of robes, facial expressions, weaponry, and ornamentation. Each figure is hollow, built with precision to endure weathering and the passage of centuries. How did artisans of the time achieve such consistency and durability? And what knowledge guided the creation of these figures, which number in the tens of thousands across Japan, often forming elaborate, almost theatrical ensembles around burial mounds? Their placement adds another layer of intrigue. Haniwa were not randomly scattered but positioned with apparent deliberation, forming circles, lines, or tiers that echo the shape of the mounds themselves. Some appear to interact, as if frozen in a story, while others seem solitary, watching silently from a distance. Were these arrangements purely ceremonial, intended to honor the dead? Or did they serve a more complex function? A visual language, a ritual map, or a symbolic record of power, lineage, or cosmology? Even the more abstract Haniwa invite questions. Cylindrical or conical forms, devoid of figurative representation, hint at meaning that has been lost. Some suggest these shapes symbolized spiritual protection, offering a barrier between the world of the living and the dead. Others propose that they represented simplified models of objects, tools, or even human qualities: courage, strength, or vigilance. Yet, with no written explanation surviving, the true intention behind these forms remains speculative, their silent presence a riddle across centuries. Haniwa also hint at societal structure and hierarchy. Figures of warriors, priests, and attendants suggest the role of individuals within both life and afterlife. Horses, weapons, and ceremonial objects reflect status and authority. Yet the choice to render some in naturalistic detail and others in abstract simplicity is curious. Was this differentiation symbolic, perhaps indicating rank, role, or spiritual potency? Or might it represent something subtler, a coded language of form that communicated meaning to those who understood the ritual context, but that remains opaque to us today? Speculative interpretations occasionally extend beyond conventional archaeology. Some enthusiasts have proposed that the Haniwa figures preserve ancestral knowledge or spiritual wisdom encoded in clay, a form of early symbolic storytelling that might convey messages about the cosmos, governance, or even unexplained phenomena. Others suggest that the figures, arranged with remarkable precision across the landscape, may align with solar or lunar events, acting as guides to celestial cycles. While such theories cannot be confirmed, they underline the persistent sense of mystery surrounding these artifacts. The cultural and environmental context deepens the intrigue. The Kofun mounds themselves are immense, labor-intensive constructions that required organized communities, advanced engineering, and an understanding of terrain and materials. Haniwa were integral to these sites, blending artistry with ritual. Yet, as centuries passed, much of the society that created them faded or transformed, leaving the figures as the primary echoes of belief, identity, and ritual practice. Their survival, despite natural decay, suggests careful intention, as though the creators meant their presence to endure long after the living memory of their meaning had faded. Walking among Haniwa today, one is struck by the uncanny sense of life within their forms. The figures gaze outward, silent witnesses to centuries of wind, rain, and human passage. The blank or stylized faces challenge our instinct to read expression, yet hint at something deeply human, a desire to connect, to guard, to observe. They are at once comforting and unsettling, embodying a cultural memory that is simultaneously tangible and elusive. Perhaps the most compelling question is this: what did the makers of Haniwa intend for their creations? Were they protective spirits, ceremonial accompaniments, or vessels of symbolic knowledge? And why did some figures achieve such lifelike detail, while others remain abstract, enigmatic, and undecipherable? The answers may be lost to time, or they may lie waiting, quietly preserved within the mounds, in plain sight, yet invisible to those who cannot yet interpret their silent language. As the sunlight falls across the terracotta guardians, and the wind whispers through the hills of ancient Japan, we are left to wonder how much of the Haniwa's meaning remains hidden, suspended between earth and sky, memory and mystery, waiting for the right observer to uncover it. From the silent guardians of clay in ancient Japan, our journey moves westward, across deserts and rivers, to one of the earliest cradles of civilization. In the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, the Sumerians laid the foundations of cities, writing, and knowledge that would echo through millennia. Among the most intriguing legacies they left behind are the Sumerian star maps, clay tablets etched with symbols that may represent the heavens themselves, a window into both astronomy and enigma. Imagine the flickering oil lamps of a Sumerian scribe, seated on a mat of reeds, stylus in hand, carefully pressing wedge-shaped characters into soft clay. Surrounding him is a world both terrestrial and celestial, a society whose survival depended on irrigation, trade, and observation of seasonal cycles. And yet, in these small, seemingly ordinary tablets, he has recorded something far larger: charts that appear to map the stars, the paths of planets, and even the intricate motions of celestial bodies over time. Each tablet is a fragment of a cosmos understood, yet mysterious, blending precise observation with symbolism that remains partially undeciphered. Archaeologists have identified dozens of such tablets, some dating back as far as 2000 BCE, though their exact purpose is still debated. Many of the symbols correspond to known constellations, planetary cycles, and lunar phases. They suggest a civilization with a surprisingly sophisticated grasp of astronomy, capable of predicting eclipses, seasonal changes, and perhaps even celestial phenomena centuries in advance. Yet, the complexity of these charts raises questions. How did the Sumerians acquire such precise knowledge without telescopes or modern instruments? What methods did they employ to track the movement of stars and planets across time? The tablets themselves vary in form and detail. Some are straightforward, showing constellations and planetary alignments. Others are more cryptic, blending mathematical notations, symbolic imagery, and sequences that hint at cycles far longer than a human lifetime. Certain patterns have led researchers to suggest the presence of an advanced understanding of precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, a phenomenon that would not be formally described until thousands of years later. Were these observations the product of centuries of careful record-keeping, passed down through generations of scribes, or do they hint at knowledge whose origins we have yet to fully grasp? Interpretation of the tablets is further complicated by the Sumerian cosmology itself. The heavens were not merely a backdrop to life on Earth. They were a living, conscious order populated by gods and celestial beings. Some star charts include references to deities, celestial events as omens, and symbolic alignments linking human events to the motions of stars. Were the tablets meant to guide ritual and governance, or were they intended as practical astronomical tools? Perhaps they were both, blending science, spirituality, and observation in a way that modern minds struggle to separate. Fringe theories surrounding the Sumerian star maps are as compelling as they are controversial. Some scholars and enthusiasts propose that the charts encode knowledge of distant worlds, of planets beyond those visible to the naked eye, or even of contact with extraterrestrial visitors. Others suggest that the Sumerians preserved a memory of astronomical events occurring thousands of years before their time, recorded as legends, myths, or symbolic diagrams. While these ideas remain speculative, they reflect the enduring fascination these tablets inspire, a sense that the Sumerians glimpsed something profound about the universe, part of which remains beyond our comprehension. The context of these star maps also underscores their mystery. Mesopotamia was a land of extremes, fertile yet prone to flooding, abundant yet vulnerable to conflict. The Sumerians relied on the sky for agriculture, for timing religious ceremonies, and for navigation across rivers and deserts. In this environment, observation of the heavens was essential, and the meticulous nature of these tablets reflects a civilization in which astronomy and survival were inseparably intertwined. Yet even with this practical necessity, the sophistication of the charts surpasses what one might expect, suggesting an intellect capable of abstract thought on cosmic scales. Consider, too, the symbolic resonance of the tablet's form. Inscribed in clay, hardened by fire or sun, these records endure far longer than parchment or papyrus. The medium itself seems chosen for permanence, as if the Sumerians intended their observations to outlast generations, to survive wars, floods, and the erosion of time. And yet, despite this care, much of their meaning remains inaccessible. The stars they mapped continue their silent courses across the sky, indifferent to human interpretation, while we are left to decode patterns, symbols, and intentions from fragments of clay. As we examine the tablets today, in dim museum cases or archaeological archives, their lines and marks seem alive, a silent dialogue with a people who lived 4,000 years ago. Each wedge-shaped impression is a testament to human curiosity, observation, and the desire to understand the cosmos. And yet, the deeper we look, the more questions emerge. How complete are these charts? What knowledge has been lost to history, whether through decay, conquest, or misunderstanding? And could there be insights encoded in these ancient markings that would challenge our modern understanding of astronomy, mathematics, or even the nature of human observation itself? The Sumerian star maps leave us with a profound sense of wonder. They are not merely artifacts of a distant civilization. They are evidence of a mind reaching out to the heavens, attempting to measure, comprehend, and connect with the vastness of space. In their simplicity, in their complexity, and in the mysteries that remain, they invite us to ask, how much of what the Sumerians knew has been forgotten? And what, if anything, might still lie hidden within the delicate impressions of clay, awaiting the observer patient enough to read the sky as they once did? From the precise impressions of Sumerian stars etched into clay, we return once more to the landscapes of our own planet, to places where stone meets sky and the passage of time is carved into the earth itself. Far to the north, on the windswept archipelago of Orkney, Scotland, the stone circles stand in quiet, enduring testimony to a people whose knowledge and intent remain shrouded in mystery. Rising from green pastures, their massive megaliths punctuate the horizon, weathered yet resolute, their presence commanding both awe and speculation. Walking among these circles today, one cannot help but feel the weight of thousands of years pressing silently. Each stone, some taller than a man, is carefully positioned, forming rings, ovals, and arcs that evoke rhythm and symmetry. The largest and most famous, the stones of Stennis, rise with remarkable regularity, while the nearby ring of Brodgar presents a circle of immense scale, its stones arranged with precision that suggests calculation and intent. How did prehistoric builders transport and erect these monoliths using only rudimentary tools? And for what purpose were they so painstakingly aligned in relation to one another and to the surrounding landscape? Archaeologists date the Orkney stone circles to roughly 3000 to 2500 BCE, placing them firmly in the late Neolithic period. They likely served as sites of ritual, community gathering, and perhaps early astronomical observation. Excavations reveal traces of hearths, pottery, and ceremonial deposits, hinting at long periods of human activity. Yet, despite decades of study, no definitive record explains why the stones were placed where they are or what ceremonies took place within their circles. Were they calendars, marking solstices and equinoxes? Were they sites of religious initiation, burial rites, or political gatherings? Or could they represent something entirely outside our current understanding? The alignment of the stones deepens the mystery. Certain stones appear oriented toward solar or lunar events, their placement marking the rising or setting of the sun at key points in the seasonal cycle. This implies not only observational knowledge of the heavens, but also a sophisticated integration of time, ritual, and architecture. Yet, the degree of precision challenges modern understanding of Neolithic capabilities. How did these ancient people, without written records or advanced instruments, achieve such alignment across large, irregular landscapes? What knowledge guided them, and what meanings were encoded in stone for their own culture, and perhaps for ours? Equally compelling is the variability among the circles. Some are simple, almost modest arrangements, while others are vast, enclosing hundreds of meters of space and dozens of standing stones. Differences in size, shape, and placement hint at different functions or symbolic meanings. Did each circle serve a distinct purpose, reflecting the values, beliefs, or social hierarchies of the communities that built them? Or did they form part of a larger, interconnected ritual landscape, designed to communicate with the sky, the land, and perhaps the unseen forces these people revered? Artifacts and features discovered around the circles provide tantalizing, yet inconclusive clues. Flint tools, carved figurines, and ceremonial deposits suggest that the builders had complex spiritual and social lives. Yet the lack of textual records forces modern observers to interpret the stones themselves as the primary language of the Neolithic mind. Could it be that the circles encode knowledge of time, cosmology, or social structure in a symbolic language we are only beginning to understand? Speculative interpretations abound, reflecting the enigmatic character of the sites. Some suggest that the stone circles were aligned not only with the sun and moon, but with stars or even planets, forming a terrestrial counterpart to the heavens, much like the Sumerian star maps we explored previously. Others propose that the stones were instruments for sound or resonance, used in ritual to create acoustic effects that enhanced spiritual experiences. While such theories cannot be confirmed, they underscore the persistent sense of wonder the circles evoke, inviting us to imagine lives intertwined with both natural and supernatural forces. The Orkney landscape itself contributes to the enigma. Low-lying hills, lochs, and windswept plains frame the circles, creating vistas that seem both protective and deliberately dramatic. The stones are often situated near water or on slight rises, suggesting that the builders understood not just geometry, but sightlines, horizon perspectives, and environmental context. Was this aesthetic, practical, or symbolic? Or perhaps all three, combining observation, spirituality, and social organization in ways we can only partially reconstruct. Walking among the Orkney stone circles today, one senses a dialogue between human ambition and the immensity of time. Each stone casts long shadows at dawn and dusk, forming patterns that shift with the seasons, as if the land itself participates in the ongoing ritual. Yet, for all their grandeur and precision, the circles remain silent. They offer no written explanation, no instruction manual, only the weight of stone, the rhythm of the landscape, and the quiet persistence of mystery. Ultimately, the Orkney stone circles challenge us to reflect on the boundaries of human knowledge and imagination. How did these Neolithic communities conceive of such structures? What knowledge of astronomy, ritual, or social organization did they possess? And what might these stones tell us about the human impulse to create, observe, and seek connection with forces larger than ourselves? As the wind sweeps across the green hills and the shadows of the megaliths stretch across the earth, we are left with a profound question. What secrets remain embedded in the stone, waiting to reveal themselves to those patient enough to look, listen, and wonder at the enduring mystery of Orkney? From the ancient stone circles of Orkney, we now shift our journey southeast into the heart of Europe, to a gently rising hill at the edge of a Bosnian valley. There, in the soft light of early morning, the mound known locally as Visočica Hill emerges from the fog, a colossal, enigmatic rise that some believe is the so-called Pyramid of the Sun, Bosnia. Whether natural or man-made, its presence commands the landscape, its ridges and terraces inviting a deeper look. As you walk the slope, you notice something unusual. Layers of turf and stone, benches of rock besides the incline, terraces that hint, at least at first glance, at intentional crafting. The hill measures roughly 220 meters in height, making it taller than many ancient pyramids in Egypt by some counts. Its summit offers commanding views of the valley below, spreading into wide pastures and woodlands, while nearby outcrops form additional features that proponents call the Pyramid of the Moon and other satellite structures. Like reading a landscape whose pages may have been turned millions of years ago, visitors are drawn into both wonder and skepticism. The mainstream geological explanation argues that Visočica is simply a natural hill formed by sedimentary processes, layers of conglomerate, clay, and sandstone folded over time, a product of erosion and uplift rather than ancient engineering. Geologists who have drilled into the hill report typical stratification and argue that what appear to be blocks or terraces are natural bedding planes and joints in the rock. This view, widely held in academia, sees the pyramid as a natural formation wrapped in myth and national pride. Yet the alternative interpretation is equally compelling in its ambition. Beginning in 2005, a research team led by Semir Osmanagic proposed that the hill is in fact an ancient purpose-built pyramid, constructed perhaps 10,000 or more years ago, predating many known monumental structures. Survey teams claim to have identified geometric alignments of the hill's edges, terracing that appears artificial, and an orientation toward cosmic north. Some claim that synthetic blocks of material under the surface show evidence of human shaping, and that underground tunnels and caverns form part of a larger complex. These assertions remain controversial, yet they add to the sense that something more may lie hidden beneath the sod. Walking the terraces, one senses the tension between two narratives. On one hand, the hill might simply be a splendid example of nature's artistry and human imagination reading meaning into patterns of rock and soil. On the other, if human hands did raise or shape the hill intentionally, then we are looking at a lost chapter of prehistoric engineering far beyond what is conventionally recognized. How would such builders have moved each mass of rock, laid each terrace, or aligned the mound without tracing accounts or surviving documents? And what was the purpose of such a structure? A tomb, a temple, a stellar observatory, or something else entirely? The pyramid theory draws on a number of curious features. Supporters cite the regularity of certain terraced layers that encircle the hill, as though acting like steps rising toward the sky. They reference measurements that align with known ancient units or orientation that favors cardinal directions. They point to subterranean tunnels and passageways uncovered beneath the hill's slopes, filled with air and water, which might have served ritual or structural functions. There are even claims of electromagnetic anomalies within certain chambers. To its proponents, the site is a global secret, awaiting full excavation and recognition. Yet for all the assertions and investigations, mainstream archaeologists and geologists remain unconvinced. They question the lack of securely dated cultural material akin to that found in other ancient monumental sites, the absence of inscriptions, and the heavy overlay of modern interventions, including tourism infrastructure and construction of tunnels. Many see the site as reflecting a modern phenomenon of pseudo-archaeology, in which national identity, tourism, and the desire for firsts combine with genuine curiosity to blur the lines between natural formation and human design. The environment around Visasica further deepens the mystery. The valley is quiet, punctuated by the rustle of leaves, the flight of birds, the occasional meadow path. The hill's terraces catch the changing light. At dawn, a faint glow on one side. At dusk, a sharp shadow across another. The air is cool and still, and the sense of scale, of something ancient and large, rests heavy in the mind. Whether one is walking a natural hill or a hidden pyramid, the effect is the same, a prompting to reflect on how human ambition and the landscape intersect. On certain clear days, one can climb high and look back toward the summit, and the alternating bands of vegetation and stone seem almost deliberate, as though someone once walked these slopes with a plan. But such impressions must be treated with caution. Nature is adept at creating patterns. The human mind is equally adept at interpreting them. Where is the boundary between reading a stone face and projecting a narrative onto it? As we leave the hill and descend into the meadow below, the question lingers. What if the Pyramid of the Sun is indeed human-made? And what if its builders left no text, no seal, no written testimony, only stone and soil shaped by hand? What if they intended to reach not upward toward dimensionless space, but inward toward meaning, ritual, cosmology, legacy? And if they did, why did that knowledge vanish, leaving only the hill, the terraces, the tunnels, and the unanswered questions? The Pyramid of the Sun invites us to consider not just ancient architecture, but the nature of interpretation itself. It asks us, when a landscape fits with our sense of intention, when the lines appear too regular, the orientation too aligned, the scale too ambitious, are we seeing design or the illusions of design? And which of those possibilities matters more for what we understand about ourselves and our past? Standing halfway up the slope as the wind rises, you feel the presence of time, deep time, layered like the rock beneath your boots. Whether that time was shaped by human hands or by the earth itself, it holds its secret still. What remains hidden beneath the surface of this hillside, waiting for those patient enough to look again and listen? From the rolling slopes and terraces of Bosnia, our journey moves southeast across continents to a land where arid desert winds carve their own stories into stone. Here, amidst the rugged canyons and jagged cliffs of southern Jordan, lies the ancient city of Petra, a metropolis sculpted directly from the rose-red rock of the surrounding mountains. Entering its narrow gorge, the Sikh, one feels a slow shift in atmosphere. The air cools, shadows stretch along towering walls, and the faint echo of footsteps whispers through a passage formed over millennia. And then, as the gorge opens, the treasury, Al-Khazne, emerges, an intricately carved facade catching the first rays of sunlight, revealing craftsmanship and ambition that seem almost impossible for its time. Petra is most commonly associated with the Nabateans, an Arab people who flourished roughly between the 4th century BCE and the 2nd century CE. Its fame lies not only in its monumental facades, tombs, and temples, but in the city's astonishing integration with its natural environment, water channels, cisterns, and reservoirs, demonstrate sophisticated hydraulic engineering, allowing life to flourish in a desert where rainfall is scarce. Yet beyond these practical marvels, Petra presents enigmas that have puzzled historians, archaeologists, and travelers for centuries. How was this city carved so precisely from solid rock? What inspired its unique combination of Hellenistic, Egyptian, and indigenous architectural styles? And what secrets of culture, ritual, or knowledge remain buried beneath its sands? The scale and complexity of Petra invite immediate awe. Walking through the sick, one notices niches, carvings, and detours whose purpose is not fully understood. Tombs and temples abound, yet many remain unexcavated, their interiors silent, their chambers holding echoes of lives long vanished. Al-Khazni itself, originally thought to be a royal tomb, is more than a simple facade. Its interior chambers, mysterious carvings, and hidden passageways suggest ritualistic functions, astronomical alignments, or symbolic meanings yet to be decoded. Why such precision in placement? Were these structures purely commemorative, or did they also serve as tools of governance, spiritual observation, or something more esoteric? Petra's water system is another source of wonder. In a landscape often inhospitable to settlement, the Nabateans managed to channel rainwater, springs, and floodwaters through terracotta pipes, cisterns, and aqueducts. Archaeologists marvel at the ingenuity required. Sedimentation basins, reservoirs capable of sustaining tens of thousands of people, and a network that survives in some form even today. But one question remains unresolved. Did these hydraulic innovations arise solely from necessity, or were they also designed to impress, control, or mystify those who entered the city? In Petra, utility and symbolism often appear inseparable, leaving us to consider that every channel, every carved niche, might carry layered meanings. Petra's location itself is enigmatic. Hidden in a canyon system, the city was naturally defended, yet its placement suggests more than just practicality. Scholars note potential astronomical alignments, entrances and facades oriented to capture light during solstices, rock-cut niches positioned to frame celestial events. Was this intentional? An integration of architecture and cosmology that echoed beliefs about time, divinity, and the universe? Or were these alignments coincidental, amplified by the imagination of later observers? Even today, sunlight filtering into tombs at specific angles sparks questions about the knowledge and intent of its creators. Artifacts found within Petra offer tantalizing clues, yet often deepen the mystery. Pottery, coins, inscriptions, and sculptures suggest a culture in dialogue with distant civilizations, from Roman trade networks to Arabian hinterlands. Yet, despite this cultural exchange, Petra retains a unique character, its style distinct, its symbolism cryptic. Carvings of deities, motifs, and geometric patterns hint at beliefs and practices that defy full interpretation. Did these symbols serve purely religious purposes, or were they part of a coded system of knowledge or navigation, visible only to the initiated? Speculative theories extend the mystery further. Some suggest Petra may have functioned as a repository of ancient wisdom, its rock-cut chambers preserving knowledge of astronomy, alchemy, or esoteric traditions. Others propose that Petra's hidden passageways and cisterns were part of secretive cultic or mystical practices, potentially aligned with celestial or seasonal cycles. While evidence for such theories remains limited, they reflect the profound effect Petra exerts on the imagination, a city that seems alive not only with the memory of human activity, but with lingering unresolved questions. Walking through Petra today, one senses both the grandeur of human achievement and the humbling scale of time. The rock facades shimmer in dawn light, shadows stretch along the canyon walls, and every carved doorway, chamber, and terrace reminds us that this city was once a living, breathing civilization. Yet, for all its exposure to study, Petra continues to withhold secrets. How many chambers remain unexplored? How many symbols misunderstood? And what might the Nabateans have intended for generations yet unborn, leaving instructions and messages carved in stone that we are only beginning to decipher? Petra invites contemplation, asking us to consider the human impulse to shape the landscape, to encode knowledge and beauty in stone, and to seek permanence in the impermanent world of deserts and time. Each terrace, each facade, each hidden channel is a question frozen in rock. How did the Nabateans accomplish such feats, and what remains hidden, waiting for those who can read the language of stone, light, and shadow? As the sun sets over the rose-red cliffs, casting long silhouettes across the ancient city, we are left with a singular, compelling thought. Petra is both monument and mystery, a testament to ingenuity and a challenge to our understanding. What secrets remain buried beneath its facades, waiting for eyes patient and perceptive enough to uncover them? From the rose-red stone of Petra, carved deep into desert canyons, we return to the timeless sands of Egypt, where architecture and ritual merge into forms of extraordinary precision. In the city of Dendera, on the west bank of the Nile, rises the Temple of Hathor, a sanctuary dedicated to the goddess of music, love, and joy. At first glance, its columns and reliefs display the grandeur of late Ptolemaic craftsmanship: carved stone ceilings, vivid hieroglyphs, and sculpted images of deities that seem to breathe life into the stone itself. Yet there is more here than mere artistry. Within these walls, whispers of sound and resonance hint at a deeper, almost imperceptible mystery. The temple's hypostyle hall is striking in both size and design. 42 massive columns rise in parallel rows, their capitals adorned with Hathor's cow-headed motifs, and their surfaces etched with scenes of ritual, astronomy, and divine hierarchy. The hall was intended for ceremonial gatherings, yet its acoustics have long drawn curiosity. When a voice is raised within the space, even in a whisper, the sound carries with remarkable clarity and resonance, echoing across the hall in a way that seems almost engineered. How could ancient builders, without microphones or electronic amplification, have created a space in which human sound travels with such precise, amplified effect? Archaeologists generally agree that the temple's architecture served both symbolic and practical purposes. The columns, ceiling, and spatial arrangement reflect not only aesthetic choices, but also ritual necessities. Processional pathways, sightlines for priestly ceremonies, and spaces designed to evoke awe. Yet researchers, acousticians, and visitors have repeatedly noted phenomena that appear to go beyond mere chance. Notes hum, echoes linger, and certain positions in the hall produce effects that almost resemble amplification, creating a space in which sound seems to carry divine weight. Could the Nabateans have understood principles of resonance, vibration, or the physics of sound more deeply than previously assumed? The temple was built in the late Ptolemaic and early Roman periods, around 54 BCE, atop older religious foundations. Hathor's cult, centered on music, song, and ritual performance, was likely aware of sound's role in sacred practice. Priests and performers may have utilized specific pitches or chants to resonate with the temple's architecture, intensifying spiritual experience. Yet, even if sound was a deliberate element of ceremony, the precision and consistency observed today suggest knowledge or insight into acoustics that remains difficult to explain. Were these effects discovered empirically through centuries of trial and error, or was there intentional mathematical planning now lost to history? The walls themselves add to the enigma. Carvings depict musical instruments, sistrums, drums, and flutes, and processions in which chanting and music are central. It is tempting to imagine these rituals, their sounds echoing through the hall, vibrating against the carved stone and columns, creating an immersive, almost otherworldly environment. Some scholars suggest that the acoustic qualities reinforce the temple's spiritual purpose, sound as a bridge between the earthly and the divine, an invisible force that augmented the ritual experience. But to what extent were the acoustics intentionally designed, and how much arises from the natural interplay of stone, space, and proportion? Fringe theories extend the mystery even further. Some suggest that the Temple of Hathor was a repository of hidden knowledge, that its columns and chambers encode frequencies capable of influencing consciousness, or that sound itself was harnessed in ritual as a form of ancient technology. Others propose that the hall was constructed with sacred geometry in mind, aligning with cosmic principles to amplify both sound and spiritual energy. While such ideas cannot be conclusively verified, they underscore the profound fascination the temple inspires and the sense that the ancients understood dimensions of the physical world that remain partially hidden from modern science. The layout of the temple complex compounds the intrigue. Its sanctuaries, corridors, and outer halls all create a network in which sound behaves differently depending on location, height, and surface angles. Some frequencies appear to reverberate preferentially, lingering as if held within the stone itself. Could this have been intentional, a tool for meditation, spiritual connection, or the reinforcement of ritual authority? Or is it a natural byproduct of construction materials and geometry, noticed and perhaps leveraged by the priests, but not originally planned? The question remains open, leaving modern visitors to wonder at the delicate balance of architecture and experience. The environmental context is equally compelling. Situated on the Nile's west bank, the temple was part of a larger sacred landscape connected to other temples, cemeteries, and sacred water sources. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound would have created an immersive sensory experience. Dawn or dusk rituals enhanced by acoustics, ritual music carried through columns, and the natural echo of the hall amplifying collective chanting. Each element suggests that the architects considered the full spectrum of human perception: sight, sound, and spiritual sensibility. Yet, despite careful observation, we remain unsure whether these effects were intentional, partially coincidental, or a combination of both. Even today, when one stands in the hypostyle hall and speaks softly, the sound behaves in unexpected ways, bending across space, echoing in directions that defy intuition. The temple seems alive, a resonant companion to human curiosity and ritual practice. Each note, each whisper, is a reminder that this space was designed for more than shelter. It was a conduit, a bridge between the tangible and the unseen, between human intention and divine mystery. The Temple of Hathor asks fundamental questions about ancient knowledge and human perception. How sophisticated were the architects' understanding of acoustics and resonance? Were the effects discovered through experimentation, or was there a guiding principle, mathematical, spiritual, or both, embedded in the design from the beginning? And what other ancient sites might harbor similar acoustic mysteries, waiting for patient observation to reveal them? As light filters through the carved stone and sound lingers in the vast hall, one cannot help but feel a sense of presence, as though the ancient architects intended their work to speak across time. The Temple of Hathor is not merely a monument to ritual or devotion. It is a space that challenges our understanding of the physical and the spiritual, the visible and the invisible. What other secrets lie encoded in its stones, waiting for those who can hear not just with ears, but with perception tuned to the subtleties of sound, space, and mystery? From the resonant halls of the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, where stone seems to listen and respond to the human voice, our journey carries us across the Mediterranean and into the highlands of eastern Turkey. Here, perched atop a remote mountain peak, rise the colossal stone statues of Mount Nemrut, guardians of an ancient royal tomb whose presence is as imposing as it is enigmatic. At sunrise, the summit is bathed in a soft golden light, casting long shadows across weathered heads and fractured limbs, while the surrounding mountains stretch into the misty horizon. It is a place both isolated and monumental, a space where human ambition and natural grandeur meet in stark, unforgettable contrast. The statues, each towering several meters in height, were erected by King Antiochus I of Commagene in the 1st century BCE, as part of a funerary complex designed to honor both his lineage and the gods. The site is a hybrid of Hellenistic, Persian, and local Anatolian artistic traditions, a cultural crossroads rendered in stone. Yet even as we understand their historical and artistic context, the statues retain an aura of mystery. How were such enormous figures transported, carved, and positioned at an altitude exceeding 2,100 meters on a mountain summit with few accessible roads? And why choose this particular location, so remote and exposed to the forces of wind, snow, and time? Approaching the statues, one is struck first by their scale heads, often separated from their bodies due to centuries of earthquakes and erosion, remain disproportionately massive, their faces gazing eternally across the valleys below. Lions, eagles, and mythological deities flank human forms, each carved with attention to detail that hints at both artistry and symbolic intent. Some faces are serene, others stern. Some gaze toward the rising sun, others toward distant horizons. Were these orientations deliberate, designed to align with celestial events, or do they reflect symbolic hierarchies, directing attention toward the heavens, the king, or the earth itself? The terraces upon which the statues rest add another layer of complexity. Built from carefully arranged stone, they form a series of platforms that amplify the grandeur of the sculptures. Scholars suggest that the layout was intentionally designed for both ritual and visibility, creating a sacred space in which ceremonies could take place and where the king's divine status would be reinforced by scale and positioning. Yet the precise function of these terraces and the reasoning behind the site's construction at such a precarious elevation remain matters of speculation. Were they meant to create a cosmic stage, aligning human authority with celestial order? Or were they primarily symbolic, a demonstration of power and ambition visible for miles across the surrounding valleys? Mount Nemrut's statues are also notable for the fragments and dislocations that now dominate the site. Many of the heads lie on the terraces, toppled by time, earthquakes, or perhaps deliberate human intervention. The bodies, although partially buried, once formed part of a larger ceremonial tableau. This fragmentation invites questions. Did the original arrangement follow a specific ritual logic, now obscured by destruction? And could the positions of the fallen statues hold clues to lost knowledge of the rituals, ceremonies, or astronomical observations once performed here? Speculative theories surrounding Mount Nemrut deepen the mystery. Some suggest that the alignment of the statues and terraces may correspond to solstices or equinoxes, integrating the mountain itself into a larger cosmic framework. Others propose that the statues were designed as a bridge between cultures, linking Persian, Greek, and Anatolian traditions into a single visual language, a testament to cultural syncretism and political messaging. More fringe interpretations posit that hidden chambers or tunnels beneath the terraces may preserve artifacts or inscriptions yet to be discovered, suggesting that the site could conceal knowledge intentionally encoded for the initiated or for posterity. The site's remoteness only amplifies its enigmatic character. Situated atop a mountain, often shrouded in clouds, Nemrut was inaccessible to many in antiquity, yet it commanded an extraordinary visual presence. From this summit, one can imagine the king surveying his domain, his monumental effigies gazing down like silent sentinels. The combination of altitude, scale, and artistry creates a sensory experience that seems to extend beyond practicality, invoking awe, reverence, and perhaps even fear. What psychological or spiritual effect was intended, both for those who visited in antiquity and for the generations who would later encounter the ruins? Artifacts and inscriptions found at the site provide some insight, but often raise more questions than they answer. Dedications to the gods, dynastic genealogies, and Hellenistic motifs point to a deliberate blending of political, religious, and cultural symbolism. Yet, much remains undeciphered or eroded. The king's vision, encoded in stone, gestures toward a cosmic understanding and human ambition that surpasses simple mortuary function. What messages were intended for eternity, and what knowledge has been lost in the centuries since their erection? Walking among the fallen heads, the fractured bodies, and the majestic lion and eagle statues, one feels a profound sense of the passage of time. The mountains, wind, snow, and rock continue to sculpt and erode, while the human figures, frozen in grandeur, resist the decay of centuries. Each colossal face gazing across the valleys challenges us to consider both the practical skill and the imaginative vision of their creators. How did King Antiochus I and his artisans conceive of such a site, and what aspects of their knowledge, ritual practice, or political symbolism remain hidden beneath the mountain's stones? Mount Nemrut reminds us that monuments are never just physical constructions. They are expressions of human curiosity, ambition, and desire to communicate across time. The statues' colossal scale, their remote location, and their enduring mystery speak to questions about knowledge, ritual, and symbolism that have yet to be answered. What lies hidden in the terraces, beneath the rubble, or encoded in the alignments of stone? How much of the king's vision was meant to endure, and how much of it remains obscured by time, climate, and human interpretation? As the sun sets behind the eastern ridges, casting long shadows across the colossal heads, one is left with a lingering thought. Mount Nemrut is not only a monument to power, artistry, and devotion, but also a riddle in stone. What secrets still wait to be uncovered atop this windswept summit, hidden in plain sight by time, gravity, and the enduring enigma of human ambition? From the windswept summit of Mount Nemrut, where colossal stone faces gaze eternally across rugged Anatolian valleys, our journey returns to the sands of Egypt, where another monumental guardian watches over the desert. On the Giza plateau, beyond the pyramids that rise with quiet grandeur against the horizon, lies the Great Sphinx, a vast limestone figure of body and visage carved directly from the bedrock. Its leonine form stretches more than 70 meters in length, while its human-like face, weathered yet commanding, surveys the horizon with a timeless gaze. Standing here, one is immediately struck by the scale, the presence, and the enduring mystery of this singular creation. The Sphinx is traditionally dated to the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, around 2500 BCE, positioned deliberately to face the rising sun in the east. Its construction required precise planning, immense labor, and an intimate understanding of the stone beneath. Yet despite centuries of study, many questions remain unresolved. How was such a colossal figure carved with such proportion and symmetry, without modern tools or engineering knowledge? How did the builders ensure that its face, lion's body, and surrounding enclosure aligned with both natural and cosmic reference points? And what secrets of symbolism, ritual, or astronomical knowledge might have been encoded in its very form? Walking around the Sphinx today, one notices its erosional patterns, smooth faces carved into softer limestone, contrasting with the rougher surrounding rock. Some researchers suggest that wind and sand alone account for much of the weathering, while others propose that water erosion, possibly from prehistoric floods, shaped its contours in ways that predate Khafra's reign. Could the Sphinx, in fact, be older than conventional archaeology allows, a relic of an earlier civilization now lost to time? And if so, what civilization possessed the skill and vision to carve a monument of this scale and endurance? The monument's construction continues to provoke debate. Blocks of quarried stone reinforce its body and encase its base, but the internal structure, largely hidden from view, suggests careful planning and adaptation to the natural rock. Some hypothesize that the Sphinx was built not merely as a tomb guardian, but as a cosmic sentinel, oriented to align with the rising sun on specific solstices, or even with distant stars. If this is the case, the structure represents not only artistic and engineering mastery, but a sophisticated awareness of astronomy. How much of this knowledge has been lost, and what might the builders have intended to convey through alignment, scale, and form? Equally mysterious is the purpose of the Sphinx. In ancient Egyptian belief, lions were powerful symbols of strength and guardianship, and the human face, often thought to represent a pharaoh, embodied divine authority. Yet the combination of human intellect and leonine power remains unique, a synthesis of symbolic forces whose precise meaning may elude us. Was the Sphinx intended to protect the necropolis of Giza? To embody cosmic principles? Or to serve as a repository of hidden knowledge, visible yet incomprehensible to most who approached it? Fringe theories have flourished around the Sphinx for centuries, adding to its aura of mystery. Some suggest that it marks an entrance to secret subterranean chambers, holding ancient texts or treasures long buried beneath the sands. Others propose that its alignment, form, and erosional patterns are evidence of lost civilizations with advanced engineering or astronomical knowledge, predating the Egyptians themselves. While much of this remains speculative, these ideas underscore the monument's ability to inspire curiosity and challenge assumptions about human history. The Sphinx's face itself adds to the enigma. Missing its nose and partially eroded, it has endured millennia of natural forces, human intervention, and iconoclastic acts, yet its expression continues to captivate observers. Some scholars argue that subtle asymmetries and proportions may have held symbolic significance, possibly encoding ideas about kingship, divinity, or cosmic order. Were these intentional, a deliberate imprint of cultural or spiritual wisdom, or simply a product of centuries of wear and restoration, reshaping the monument into the visage we see today? The surrounding landscape amplifies the mystery. The Sphinx sits in a shallow enclosure, its eastern face aligned with the plateau's rising sun, flanked by temples, causeways, and the pyramids themselves. The integration of natural and man-made forms suggests that the Sphinx was part of a larger sacred geography, designed to connect human ritual, celestial cycles, and royal authority. Yet despite extensive excavation and study, no definitive records explain how it was conceived, constructed, or what hidden meanings its builders intended to preserve. Standing in the shadow of the Great Sphinx, one feels both awe and uncertainty. The monument transcends mere tomb protection or artistic achievement. It challenges our understanding of human capability, intent, and perception of the cosmos. Its scale, alignment, and symbolic power suggest a civilization attuned not only to earthly concerns, but to the rhythms of the sky, and yet, despite millennia of observation, the Sphinx keeps its secrets closely held. The Great Sphinx invites reflection on the passage of time, the endurance of human creativity, and the limits of our knowledge. How much of its story has been erased by wind, water, and centuries of human intervention. What knowledge, ritual, or cosmic understanding might remain hidden beneath its weathered body, or in the sands that surround it? And as we gaze into the eyes of this monumental guardian, do we see the face of Pharaoh Khafra, or a remnant of something older, a sentinel whose origins and purpose remain unresolved? As the sun rises or sets over the plateau, casting shifting shadows across the Sphinx's vast form, we are left with a singular, enduring question. How much of our past is truly known, and what mysteries remain hidden in plain sight, waiting for those patient enough to see, listen, and wonder at the silent witness of the desert? From the enduring sands of Egypt, where the great Sphinx gazes silently across millennia, our journey shifts to the dense forests and rolling plains of the American Midwest, to a place far removed from pyramids and desert winds. Here, among the birch trees and quiet glades of Minnesota, rests a peculiar and controversial artifact, the Kensington Runestone. Weathered and enigmatic, the stone is roughly 200 pounds of gray granite, its flat surface etched with runic inscriptions that defy easy explanation. Standing before it, one cannot ignore the tension between human handiwork and mystery, between history as we know it and the tantalizing suggestion of secrets yet undiscovered. The stone was first brought to public attention in 1898 by a Swedish immigrant named Olof Oman, who claimed to have found it embedded in the soil while clearing his farm near Kensington. The inscriptions, carved with careful precision, tell a story of Norse explorers venturing deep into the interior of North America in the 14th century, centuries before Columbus set sail for the New World. If authentic, the stone offers a profound glimpse into the reach and capabilities of early Scandinavian explorers, challenging established narratives of pre-Columbian exploration. Yet, almost immediately, controversy arose. Skeptics questioned the language, the carving style, and the historical plausibility of Norse expeditions reaching the heart of Minnesota. Examining the stone, the runes themselves are arresting. Each character is sharply etched, yet shows signs of wear and weathering consistent with long-term exposure. The text is written in a dialect of Old Swedish interspersed with runic forms, narrating a journey of explorers who encountered hardship, lost companions, and the unforgiving North American wilderness. Mainstream historians argue that linguistic inconsistencies, grammatical anomalies, and unusual rune forms suggest a modern forgery, perhaps created by Oman himself, or another hand attempting to craft a sensational artifact. But supporters note subtleties in the rune's structure that would be difficult for a layperson of the 19th century to reproduce accurately, suggesting instead the possibility of a genuine medieval origin. The stone's discovery site adds another layer of intrigue. Found in a remote and lightly populated area, buried partially underground, the Kensington Runestone appears to have been deliberately placed or left by its creators. Could Norse explorers have traveled hundreds of miles from known settlements in Newfoundland and the Great Lakes region, penetrating the interior forests of Minnesota, to leave this singular marker? And if so, why does it remain virtually the only surviving trace of such an expedition, without corroborating archaeological evidence in the surrounding terrain? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that the inscription documents a minor scouting or trade party, lost to history and erased by time, leaving the stone as the sole testament of their passage. Others propose that the runestone may have served as a territorial marker, a deliberate claim laid down by explorers to assert presence in an uncharted land. A few fringe interpretations suggest far more audacious possibilities, that transatlantic contact in the 14th century was far more common than conventional history allows, and that the stone is a relic of hidden networks of exploration that left traces scattered across the continent, yet largely unrecorded. Physical analysis of the Kensington Runestone has yielded further questions. Studies of weathering patterns, lichen growth, and microscopic wear suggest that the carvings could indeed be centuries old, though dating stone itself is notoriously difficult. The combination of authenticity indicators and anomalies has fueled decades of debate, leaving the stone suspended between two worlds, one of historical possibility, the other of enduring skepticism. Every generation of scholars and enthusiasts revisits the question, armed with more sophisticated techniques, yet the stone's provenance remains elusive. What is particularly fascinating is the stone's narrative content. It describes hardship, exploration, and survival in a hostile, unknown land, a narrative that resonates with what is known of Norse maritime and overland expeditions elsewhere in the Atlantic world. Yet it references geographical features and distances that some scholars argue would have been impossible to ascertain for explorers of that era. How much of the text reflects real events, and how much is subject to interpretation or even embellishment? And if the runestone is authentic, what does it tell us about human courage, curiosity, and the unknown paths our ancestors traversed? The broader historical context deepens the puzzle. In the 14th century, the Norse world was already experiencing expansion across Greenland, Iceland, and Vinland. While archaeological evidence of settlements exists in Newfoundland, the interior of North America remains a shadowy frontier. Did these explorers leave only the stone as proof of their journey, or were there others lost, unrecorded, and buried beneath the soil of forests and rivers? And if this single artifact is genuine, what does it imply about other possible traces yet undiscovered, waiting silently beneath the earth? Standing before the Kensington Runestone today, one feels the weight of both time and controversy. Its surface is rough under the hand, each groove a testament to labor, intent, and mystery. It challenges assumptions, forcing us to reconsider what we believe we know about exploration, migration, and the transmission of culture. Yet it offers no definitive answers, only the faint echo of voices from the past, inscribed in stone and awaiting interpretation. The Kensington Runestone, like the great Sphinx before it, reminds us that history is not always neat or complete. It is a dialogue between evidence and imagination, between what is preserved and what is lost. It asks us to wonder who carved these runes and for what purpose. Were they a warning, a record, or a claim? And most importantly, what remains hidden in the forests and soils of the world, waiting for patient eyes to uncover traces of journeys long forgotten? As the wind rustles through the Minnesota birch trees and sunlight glances across the stone's weathered surface, we are left with a lingering, profound question. How much of human exploration lies unrecorded, etched in whispers of wood, stone, or earth, and waiting for those who will see, read, and listen to the echoes of the past? From the dense forests of Minnesota, where the enigmatic Kensington Runestone whispers of lost journeys and forgotten explorers, our path leads westward across continents and into the high plateaus of Tibet. Here, in a remote cave system near the Bayanhar Mountains, rests a series of artifacts that have both fascinated and confounded researchers for decades: the Dropa Stones. These small, circular discs, etched with spiral grooves and unusual markings, seem at first glance unremarkable, yet their very presence in these isolated caves suggests a story far stranger than meets the eye. The stones, reportedly discovered in the 1930s by a Chinese archaeological team led by Chi Pu Te, were found buried in stratified layers of rock alongside skeletal remains. Each disc measures roughly 12 inches in diameter and is carved with fine grooves that spiral toward the center, punctuated by symbols resembling hieroglyphs or proto-writing. Mainstream scholars argue that the markings are decorative, possibly ritualistic, and that the stones are a product of local craftsmanship. Yet the precision of the carvings, combined with claims of their unusual metallic composition, has fueled speculation and debate for decades. Descriptions of the Dropa Stones include an extraordinary claim that the grooves, when carefully studied, form a type of encoded language, a message or record left by unknown visitors long ago. Some researchers have suggested that the disks tell a story of beings arriving from the sky, describing journeys across distant worlds and crash landing in these mountains. Could these inscriptions represent a lost civilization's memory, a myth encoded in stone, or perhaps a record of something altogether more inexplicable? The cave itself, deep and echoing, seems to amplify the sense of mystery, as though the stones were meant to be found by those who sought them. Skeptics have pointed out inconsistencies in the accounts. The original archaeological reports were often lost or inadequately documented, and some of the skeletal remains described alongside the stones have never been conclusively verified. Critics suggest that the Dropa Stones may be a modern hoax or a misinterpretation of mundane artifacts, perhaps created by local cultures and misread by enthusiastic observers. Yet the allure of these small discs persists, in part because of the precision of the grooves and the cryptic nature of the inscriptions, which do not resemble known Tibetan scripts or any other writing system of the period. The stones themselves are intriguing from a material perspective. Some reports claim that they are composed of a dense stone infused with traces of metal, with grooves polished to near perfection. Others describe magnetic anomalies, subtle variations in weight, and properties that defy easy classification. Were these characteristics intentionally engineered? Could they have had a functional purpose beyond mere decoration, perhaps as a type of record-keeping device or ritual instrument? And if so, who possessed the knowledge to create such artifacts in this remote and harsh environment? Cultural context only deepens the mystery. The Bayan Har region is home to Tibetan Buddhist traditions, legends of hidden valleys, and stories of ancient travelers. Yet the Dropa Stones do not fit neatly into any known historical narrative. They suggest a presence, however fleeting, of beings or peoples whose origin, technology, and purpose remain unrecorded in conventional history. Could these stones be a remnant of an isolated culture that never developed conventional settlements, leaving only enigmatic traces in caves? Or do they hint at something far stranger, a story that challenges our assumptions about human history and the reach of unknown visitors? Some interpretations propose that the Dropa Stones functioned as a form of communication, encoding information in a spiral rather than linear format, possibly intended to be read with special knowledge or tools. Others speculate on astronomical or calendrical significance, noting the spiral's resemblance to star charts or orbital patterns. If these theories hold even a fragment of truth, the stones may represent one of the earliest examples of advanced abstract thinking, or perhaps a record of events beyond Earth itself. Yet these ideas remain unverified, hovering at the edge of plausibility, inviting both skepticism and fascination. Modern investigation has struggled to reconcile these claims with the lack of corroborating evidence. Many of the stones were reportedly stored in museums or private collections, but photographs, measurements, and chemical analyses are scarce, incomplete, or contradictory. Yet those who have examined the stones describe a sense of precision, intent, and mystery that is difficult to dismiss entirely. Each spiral, each groove seems deliberate, as though someone, or something, took extraordinary care to leave a message that could survive centuries of obscurity. Standing in the caves where the Dropa Stones were first found, one can almost imagine the ancient hands that carved them, or perhaps the distant travelers who left them behind. The light filters through narrow openings, catching the edges of the discs and casting tiny, intricate shadows along the rock walls. It is a quiet, haunting place, a crossroads of geology, history, and legend. And in the stillness, the stones seem to hum with questions rather than answers. The Dropa Stones compel us to reflect on the limits of our knowledge. How many traces of human or non-human activity have been lost, misinterpreted, or dismissed over millennia? Could these small disks represent a fleeting intersection of cultures, technology, or even species whose story has otherwise vanished from history? And if the inscriptions do indeed encode a message, what might it contain, waiting silently for those patient enough to read between the grooves? As we leave the shadowed caves and step into the Tibetan plateau, the Dropa Stones remain behind, silent, mysterious, and unresolved. They are a reminder that history is not always linear, that the past can harbor anomalies that challenge our understanding, and that the human, or perhaps extraterrestrial story may be far richer and stranger than we can imagine. What secrets are still waiting to be uncovered, hidden in stone, in spiral grooves, or in the forgotten corners of the world? From the high plateaus of Tibet, where the Dropa Stones whisper of spirals, encoded messages, and possibly unknown visitors, our journey turns northwest across continents and centuries to a modest hill in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany. Here, buried beneath the soil for millennia, lay one of the most extraordinary archaeological discoveries of the modern era: the Nebra Sky Disk. At first glance, it appears deceptively simple, a bronze disk, roughly 30 centimeters in diameter, inlaid with gold symbols that glint faintly in the light. Yet this small object is a window into the mind of people living in the European Bronze Age, a civilization capable of observing, interpreting, and encoding the cosmos in ways that continue to challenge our understanding. The disk was discovered in 1999, hidden in a barrow atop the Middelburg Hill, accompanied by a trove of bronze axes, swords, and jewelry. Its surface bears a crescent, a cluster of dots thought to represent stars, and a golden circular symbol often interpreted as the sun or full moon. The arrangement suggests knowledge of celestial events, including solstices, lunar phases, and possibly even the Pleiades star cluster. Mainstream archaeologists hail the disk as the earliest known depiction of the cosmos in Europe, a sophisticated tool for ritual or astronomical purposes. Yet, even as this interpretation gains support, the disk's origins, purpose, and broader significance remain shrouded in mystery. Holding the disk, one cannot help but notice its precision. The gold inlays are carefully applied, forming shapes that align with remarkable accuracy. The bronze itself is a product of advanced metallurgy for its time, indicating not only technical skill, but also cultural emphasis on preserving knowledge. Some suggest it functioned as a calendrical instrument, guiding agricultural or ceremonial events. Yet the disk is not merely practical, it is symbolic, bridging human observation and spiritual meaning. What motivated its creators to encode such intricate knowledge into a single, portable object? And why bury it in a remote hill, hidden from plain view, only to be rediscovered thousands of years later? The Nebra Sky Disk is remarkable not only for its artistry, but also for the questions it raises about European prehistory. Bronze Age societies are often viewed as primarily agrarian, with limited capacity for astronomical observation. Yet the disk demonstrates careful tracking of celestial patterns, the ability to synthesize them into a coherent system, and the intention to communicate that knowledge symbolically. Was this object intended for elite ritual use, a sacred tool understood only by a few initiates? Or was it part of a broader knowledge system, shared across communities whose details have been lost to time? Some theories suggest that the disk served as both a practical and ceremonial instrument. Its alignment with the solstices implies it may have guided seasonal activities, such as planting or harvest, while the symbolic arrangement of stars and celestial bodies could have held religious significance, connecting humans to the movements of the heavens. Yet, the exact interpretation remains elusive. The circular patterns, crescents, and star clusters invite speculation. Were they literal observations of the night sky, allegorical representations of divine forces, or both simultaneously? And if knowledge of the heavens was so advanced, how did it influence the daily lives, rituals, and governance of the people who created the disk? Fringe interpretations add further intrigue. Some suggest that the Nebra Sky Disk represents contact with distant civilizations, possibly carrying knowledge from Mediterranean or Near Eastern cultures into Central Europe. Others propose that it hints at proto-scientific understanding lost with the Bronze Age, a coded record of astronomical phenomena only partially understood by modern researchers. Even the disk's secrecy, the fact that it was buried and hidden from plain view, has led to speculation that it was deliberately concealed to protect knowledge, or perhaps to safeguard a sacred object from enemies or rivals. Analysis of the disk's composition and craftsmanship reinforces its enigmatic nature. The bronze and gold suggest considerable technical sophistication, while the precise depictions of celestial bodies imply careful observation over long periods. Researchers have attempted to recreate the disk's potential use, exploring its alignment with sunrise, sunset, and the positions of the moon and stars. These experiments indicate that it may indeed have functioned as a tool for tracking celestial events, yet the symbolic content remains open to interpretation. Does it encode a cosmological worldview, a ritual calendar, or a combination of both? And how much knowledge has been irretrievably lost, leaving us to reconstruct meaning from fragmentary evidence? The cultural context deepens the mystery. The disk was buried alongside tools and ornaments, suggesting a connection between spiritual or astronomical knowledge and social hierarchy. Was it a marker of status, a religious artifact, or an instrument for communal understanding of the cosmos? Perhaps it served all these purposes simultaneously, bridging practical necessity, spiritual belief, and social structure in a single, brilliant object. Yet, despite careful study, the disk's full significance remains just out of reach, its message partially obscured by time and the limits of modern understanding. Standing with the Nebra Sky Disk, one is struck by the paradox of intimacy and scale. It is a small object, easily held in the hand, yet it encompasses the vastness of the heavens, mapping stars, the moon, and the sun in miniature. It embodies human curiosity, the drive to understand one's place in the universe, and the skill to encode that understanding in durable form. And yet, like the Dropa Stones and the Kensington Runestone before it, it leaves us with more questions than answers. Who created it? Why? And to what extent has their knowledge been preserved or lost? The Nebra Sky Disk invites reflection on the depth and sophistication of prehistoric societies and the enduring human desire to connect with the cosmos. How many other objects, now lost or still buried, recorded similar knowledge that we have yet to uncover? What rituals, insights, or technical skills accompanied the creation of such artifacts? And what wisdom might they still hold for those patient enough to study them? As the sun rises over the gentle hills of Saxony-Anhalt, casting long shadows across the burial mounds where the disk lay hidden for centuries, we are left with a profound sense of wonder. The Nebra Sky Disk remains not just a relic of the past, but a bridge across time, linking Bronze Age observers with modern curiosity. It asks us, quietly yet insistently, how much of our history is still hidden, encoded in stone, bronze, or memory, and waiting for discovery by those willing to look closely, question boldly, and imagine beyond the ordinary. From the rolling hills of Saxony-Anhalt, where the Nebra Sky Disk captures the imagination with its celestial mapping and Bronze Age sophistication, our journey turns southward to the verdant valleys of northern Italy. Here, carved into the cliffs and rocky outcrops of Val Camonica, lies one of the most enigmatic collections of rock art in the world, a tapestry of petroglyphs spanning thousands of years. Among hundreds of depictions of hunting scenes, human figures, and symbolic motifs, a handful of carvings stand apart. Circular, disc-like shapes, often accompanied by humanoid forms, that some observers have likened to UFOs or flying craft. They invite us to pause, question, and reconsider the boundaries of interpretation. Val Camonica is home to over 140,000 petroglyphs, created over millennia by the Camuni, an ancient alpine people. The UFO images are subtle yet striking. Discs or elongated ovals etched into rock faces, sometimes with lines trailing beneath or emanating outward, figures seemingly interacting with these objects, and occasional radial patterns that suggest motion or energy. Mainstream archaeologists often interpret them as symbolic or ritual motifs, perhaps representing shields, celestial bodies, or spiritual visions. Yet their form and context spark debate, suggesting a more complex narrative than conventional explanations can fully capture. The petroglyphs' age adds to the mystery. Many date to the Iron Age, around 1000 BCE, though some may be older, created by earlier Bronze Age societies in the region. Carved with meticulous care, the discs sit amidst an array of human and animal figures, hinting at cultural stories, beliefs, or mythologies now largely lost. Did the Camuni intend to depict objects seen in the sky, or were these purely symbolic renderings, perhaps representing spiritual phenomena or cosmic concepts? And if they represent something observed, what was the nature of that observation? Natural, astronomical, or something altogether more extraordinary? The imagery is particularly compelling in the way it interacts with the landscape. Many of the petroglyphs are located on cliff faces or boulders that catch sunlight at certain times of day or stand at vantage points overlooking the valley. This placement suggests that they were not created arbitrarily. There may have been ritual significance in viewing or interacting with the carvings under specific conditions. Could the placement of these disc-like forms indicate celestial observation, a sacred alignment, or perhaps a record of events witnessed by the Camuni? Or are we imposing modern interpretations on images whose meaning was entirely symbolic, now obscured by time? Speculative interpretations have fueled fascination and controversy. Some enthusiasts propose that the disc-shaped carvings represent encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, suggesting that ancient peoples may have witnessed events now described as UFO sightings. Others argue that these carvings are the visual embodiment of religious or mythological concepts, celestial symbols encoded in rock, or even depictions of cosmological beliefs tied to local deities. While there is no definitive evidence to support extraordinary claims, the precise forms, recurring motifs, and apparent interaction with human figures ensure that the mystery remains compelling. The petroglyphs also reveal a careful interplay between human and cosmic imagery. Some discs are accompanied by humanoid forms, raising questions. Are these figures observers, participants, or representations of beings themselves? Are the lines emanating from the discs symbolic gestures, rays of light, or simply artistic flourishes? Archaeologists note that the Camuni had a rich symbolic language expressed in rock art. Yet the unusual shape of these discs stands apart from more conventional motifs, inviting speculation that something exceptional was being depicted or imagined. Material and technique add further intrigue. The carvings are shallow, yet enduring, etched directly into volcanic rock or sandstone, weathering centuries of alpine climate. The durability suggests deliberate intent to preserve images for posterity, yet the meaning of the most enigmatic forms eludes us. Were they intended to record extraordinary events, serve as instructional symbols for community rituals, or act as a bridge between the human and the divine? The ambiguity leaves them open to interpretation, balancing on the fine line between empirical study and the imagination. Val Camonica's broader cultural context provides additional layers of complexity. The region's inhabitants were deeply connected to the land, the seasons, and the mountains themselves, developing rich mythologies and rituals tied to natural phenomena. The petroglyphs may encode cosmological knowledge, agricultural cycles, or spiritual narratives. Yet the disc-like carvings, so distinct from everyday motifs, seem to hint at an observation or event that transcended the ordinary, a fleeting glimpse of the unknown, captured in stone. Standing among these ancient carvings, one senses a quiet dialogue across millennia. The cliffs of Val Camonica whisper of a people striving to record their world, their beliefs, and perhaps their mysteries. The disc-like petroglyphs, enigmatic and solitary among the more familiar figures, demand attention. Were they witnesses to celestial events, reflections of imaginative ritual, or records of something truly extraordinary? And what else lies hidden in the valley's rock faces, awaiting discovery by patient eyes attuned to subtle signs of the past? The UFO petroglyphs of Val Camonica, like the Nebra Sky Disk and the Dropa Stones before them, challenge us to consider the limits of interpretation. Are these images literal, symbolic, or something in between? They remind us that the past is not fully accessible, that human imagination and observation are intertwined, and that some mysteries persist because they invite questions rather than provide answers. As the sun dips behind the alpine peaks, casting long shadows across the etched cliffs, the petroglyphs remain steadfast, silent, and inscrutable. They beckon us to reflect on human curiosity, the urge to record the extraordinary, and the countless enigmas preserved in stone. What truths about the Kamuni, the skies they observed, and the worlds they imagined remain hidden, waiting for those patient enough to decipher the symbols etched in time? From the carved cliffs of Val Camonica, where enigmatic disc-shaped petroglyphs hint at celestial observations and extraordinary imagination, our journey moves far across oceans and continents, to the high plains of the Andes. Here, nestled near the southern shore of Lake Titicaca, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku, a sprawling complex of stone structures, monumental gateways, and intricate carvings that has long confounded archaeologists and historians alike. Standing among the ruins, one is immediately struck by the scale and precision of the construction, set against a stark and breathtaking landscape where altitude and climate themselves seem to guard the secrets of this lost civilization. Tiwanaku, thought to have flourished between 300 and 1000 CE, served as the ceremonial and administrative heart of a culture that exerted influence across the southern Andes. Massive stone blocks, some weighing tens of tons, are fitted together with astonishing accuracy, their joints so precise that even a knife blade cannot pass between them. The city's iconic gateways, such as the Gateway of the Sun, bear enigmatic carvings depicting human figures, celestial symbols, and beings whose meaning is still debated. How were these enormous stones quarried, transported across rugged terrain, and placed with such precision long before the invention of cranes or metal tools capable of such feats? The answer remains elusive, even as researchers marvel at the engineering skill evident in every structure. The architecture of Tiwanaku is intertwined with astronomical alignment. Many of the city's major structures are oriented to mark solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events, suggesting that its builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of the heavens. The Kalasasaya platform, for instance, aligns with the sunrise during solstices, offering both a ceremonial stage and a functional astronomical instrument. Yet the precise methods used to achieve such accuracy, with enormous stone blocks and over uneven terrain, remain unexplained. Did the Tiwanaku people develop techniques that have since been lost? Or were these alignments the product of trial, observation, and ingenuity that surpasses our assumptions about pre-Columbian societies? Equally compelling are the artistic and symbolic elements embedded throughout Tiwanaku bas-reliefs. Statues and monoliths feature intricate depictions of deities, mythical creatures, and geometric patterns that suggest a complex spiritual and cosmological worldview. The famous Ponce monolith depicts a figure adorned with symbols that may represent planets, crops, or ceremonial authority, yet the exact meaning remains speculative. Were these carvings intended to communicate divine knowledge, record historical events, or encode astronomical information? And if such knowledge existed, how much has been irretrievably lost to erosion, conquest, and the passage of centuries? Mainstream archaeologists generally view Tiwanaku as the product of a highly organized society with a clear hierarchy, urban planning, and ceremonial practices. Yet the city's scale, engineering, and symbolic sophistication continue to fuel debate. Some researchers have speculated that Tiwanaku may have been a center for technological and astronomical knowledge far beyond what is conventionally acknowledged for the era. Others have proposed that its builders possessed methods of moving and shaping stone that remain mysterious, inspiring fringe theories about lost civilizations or influences from unknown sources. While extraordinary claims must be approached with caution, they underscore the sense of awe and mystery the site inspires even today. The construction techniques themselves are puzzling. Stones of varying sizes, from massive monoliths to finely dressed blocks, are fitted together with near-perfect precision, despite irregular shapes and natural fractures. Some of the stones bear holes and channels that may have facilitated lifting, positioning, or even ritual purposes. How these techniques were developed, transmitted, and executed without written instruction or advanced machinery is unknown, leaving open questions about the sophistication of Tiwanaku's engineers and laborers. Tiwanaku's influence extended far beyond the city itself. Artifacts and architectural styles similar to those found at Tiwanaku have been discovered across the Altiplano, suggesting a broad cultural or political reach. Yet the reasons for the city's eventual decline remain unclear. Was it environmental, linked to droughts or changes in Lake Titicaca's water levels? Social, political, or spiritual shifts? Or a combination of forces that we can only speculate about? The absence of comprehensive written records means that much of Tiwanaku's story is inferred from its stones, artifacts, and the surrounding landscape. Walking among the ruins, the scale and orientation of Tiwanaku's structures evoke a profound sense of human ambition intertwined with the cosmos. The city seems designed not only for practical habitation, but also as a symbolic reflection of the universe itself, connecting earth, sky, and human endeavor in a single monumental expression. And yet, like the Petroglyphs of Val Camonica, the meaning of much of Tiwanaku remains tantalizingly out of reach. What knowledge, ritual, or understanding did its creators encode in the precise alignment of stones, the carvings of deities, and the urban layout of the city? Tiwanaku challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient civilizations and the depth of human ingenuity. How much of the knowledge embedded in its stones has been lost to time? Are there secrets hidden in unexplored chambers, underground tunnels, or within the patterns of celestial alignment that remain undiscovered? And as we study its monuments today, what insights into astronomy, ritual, and engineering might still be waiting to be revealed? As the Andean sun rises over the Altiplano, casting long shadows across the monolithic stones and ceremonial platforms, Tiwanaku stands as both a testament to human achievement and an enduring enigma. It is a place where the practical, the spiritual, and the astronomical converge, yet its full story eludes us. What mysteries linger among these ancient stones, and what lessons about the ingenuity and curiosity of our ancestors remain buried, waiting for the patient and perceptive to uncover. From the high plains of Tiwanaku, where monumental stones and celestial alignments whisper of a civilization deeply attuned to the cosmos, our journey now descends underground to the rugged hills of Cappadocia, Turkey. Here, hidden beneath layers of volcanic rock, lies the ancient city of Derinkuyu, a subterranean marvel whose sheer scale and sophistication continue to captivate scholars and explorers alike. Unlike the monumental constructions of Tiwanaku, Derinkuyu is a world carved into the earth itself, a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and passageways that invites both awe and an unsettling sense of mystery. Derinkuyu extends at least 60 meters deep and is believed to have housed as many as 20,000 people, complete with living quarters, kitchens, stables, wineries, chapels, and ventilation shafts. The network of tunnels twists and descends in levels, each floor meticulously engineered, with stone doors that could seal entire sections in case of danger. Walking its passages today, one is struck by the ingenuity required to create such an extensive city underground. How did its builders plan, dig, and ventilate these chambers without collapsing the rock overhead? And why dedicate such immense effort to a place entirely below the surface? Historical records suggest that Derinkuyu was expanded over centuries, perhaps beginning in the Byzantine period, and served as a refuge from invaders and marauders. Its concealed entrances and complex layouts allowed inhabitants to disappear beneath the hills at times of threat, providing shelter and sustenance for entire communities. The engineering solutions alone, deep wells for water, air shafts to circulate fresh air, and multi-level living quarters, demonstrate a remarkable understanding of both geology and human needs. Yet, even as modern archaeologists marvel at these achievements, fundamental questions remain. Who precisely built this underground city, and for what ultimate purpose? Some of the most intriguing aspects of Derinkuyu are the design features that seem almost defensive beyond necessity. Massive rolling stone doors, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, could seal off entire sections in moments. Narrow passages, steep stairways, and carefully concealed escape routes suggest an acute awareness of potential threats, but also an architectural sophistication rarely matched in contemporary above-ground settlements. Were these features designed purely for survival, or do they hint at a deeper, perhaps ritualistic or strategic purpose, lost to time? Equally puzzling is the scale of the underground complex. While Derinkuyu is the largest known subterranean city in the region, nearby Cappadocian towns also feature extensive underground networks, sometimes interconnected by tunnels stretching for kilometers. This raises questions about the coordination, planning, and labor required to construct such cities, especially given the limitations of tools and technology in antiquity. Did these communities possess knowledge of structural engineering that was unprecedented for their time, or were their methods passed down through generations, refined in secret over centuries? Speculative theories abound, especially regarding the purpose and origins of Derinkuyu. Some propose that the city was purely defensive, a response to repeated invasions and regional instability. Others suggest it served ceremonial or religious functions, perhaps as a hidden sanctuary for cults, monks, or other esoteric groups. A few fringe interpretations go further, imagining lost civilizations with advanced engineering knowledge, or even connections to enigmatic groups whose records have vanished entirely. While these ideas remain unverified, the city's sheer complexity keeps the imagination active, forcing us to reconsider what humans of the past could achieve under extraordinary circumstances. The city's layout itself hints at sophisticated social organization. Separate quarters for families, communal kitchens, stables for animals, and storage areas indicate careful planning to support daily life for extended periods underground. Chapels and ritual spaces suggest that spiritual practice was integrated into survival strategies. How did such a population maintain a sense of normalcy in a world entirely beneath the surface? What traditions, knowledge, and customs were preserved, and how were they transmitted in the darkness? The very act of living underground on this scale speaks to human adaptability and resilience, yet also to the ingenuity and forethought of those who designed the city. Even today, exploration of Derinkuyu is partially limited by collapsed tunnels, restricted access, and the dangers inherent in such subterranean spaces. Yet, what has been uncovered is enough to reveal an extraordinary civilization that thrived beneath the surface, invisible to invaders, yet intimately connected to the land above. Its presence invites reflection on the ways humans respond to fear, environmental challenges, and social pressures, transforming stone and space into a labyrinth of survival. Walking through the dimly lit corridors, one feels a palpable connection to the past. The cool stone walls, carved centuries ago, hold echoes of countless footsteps, whispers of daily life, and the silent labor of generations. Derinkuyu is a testament to human ingenuity and endurance, yet it also carries profound mysteries. How many chambers remain undiscovered? What secrets of daily life, ritual, or social organization lie buried beneath the layers of rock and soil? And what motivated its builders to invest such extraordinary effort in a hidden world below the earth, rather than in visible monuments above it? Derinkuyu, like Tiwanaku and the other sites we have explored, challenges our assumptions about the past. It asks us to imagine lives conducted entirely out of sight, to consider knowledge and skills that have largely disappeared, and to confront the possibility that ancient societies possessed abilities and organizational capacities still difficult for us to fully grasp. The underground city is at once a practical marvel and a profound mystery, a place where survival, ingenuity, and secrecy converge. As we emerge from the tunnels and sunlight returns to the Cappadocian hills, Derinkuyu remains hidden, silent, and compelling. It is a reminder that the past often hides as much as it reveals, and that the human story is filled with extraordinary achievements and enigmas, waiting patiently for those willing to explore, observe, and question. What remains undiscovered beneath the earth, and how many stories of ingenuity, survival, and mystery are still waiting to be unearthed in places like Derinkuyu? From the shadowed tunnels of Derinkuyu, where human ingenuity carved entire communities beneath the earth, our journey emerges once more into light and water, turning toward the northern coast of Egypt. There, beneath the waves of the Mediterranean, lies a city long thought lost to myth, Heracleion, also known as Thonis. Once a thriving port at the mouth of the Nile, it was a bustling hub of commerce, culture, and religion, connecting Egypt to the wider Mediterranean world. Today, it rests in silence beneath the sea, its temples, statues, and streets preserved in astonishing detail by centuries of silt and sediment. The story of Heracleion begins in antiquity, when it flourished as a center of trade and worship. Sailors, merchants, and priests navigated its harbors, bringing goods, ideas, and rituals from distant lands. The city was renowned for its monumental temples, the largest dedicated to Amun and other deities, adorned with colossal statues and intricate reliefs. Yet for centuries, Heracleion vanished from sight, its existence relegated to ancient texts and myth. It wasn't until the late 20th century that underwater archaeologists, guided by sonar and patient exploration, rediscovered the sunken city nearly 6 meters below the waves. The scale of what lies beneath the water is staggering. Entire streets, harbor structures, and massive statues remain remarkably intact. As if frozen in time, stone blocks weighing several tons lie partially buried in sand, while inscriptions and reliefs whisper fragments of religious, political, and commercial life. Among the finds are coins, jewelry, and vessels that reveal Heracleon's role as a major Mediterranean port. Yet the reasons for its disappearance remain partially unexplained. Was it sudden subsidence caused by earthquakes, gradual inundation from rising sea levels, or a combination of natural forces and human activity? Heracleon's temples and harbor structures suggest a city built with remarkable sophistication. Massive stone blocks are perfectly aligned, forming causeways and quays capable of supporting heavy traffic and trade. Colossal statues, including representations of pharaohs and deities, hint at the city's spiritual and political significance. Inscriptions indicate complex rituals and offerings, yet the scale and precision of the construction raise enduring questions. How were such massive monuments erected in a city so close to shifting waters? And how did its inhabitants engineer harbors to withstand both the river's flow and the sea's tides? Even more captivating are the enigmatic artifacts recovered from the sunken streets. Statues depicting gods, sacred animals, and human figures retain a haunting presence, partially submerged in silt. Among these finds, some scholars note depictions of unusual motifs, figures in postures or with objects whose function remains unclear. Could these represent ceremonial implements, religious symbolism, or even imaginative interpretations of phenomena observed in daily life? The underwater preservation allows us to witness these artifacts in situ, providing a rare glimpse into a world lost not to time, but to water. Mainstream archaeology frames Heracleon's fate as a combination of geological instability, rising waters, and seismic activity. Yet the city's rapid disappearance, once thriving and vital, now submerged, ignites curiosity and invites speculation. Some suggest that its sudden decline may have been accompanied by social upheaval, political strife, or catastrophic flooding that left the city uninhabitable almost overnight. Others wonder whether certain areas were intentionally abandoned, perhaps in response to omens, religious decrees, or environmental change. Regardless, the precise circumstances remain elusive, leaving Heracleion as both a historical and archaeological puzzle. The city's rediscovery has not only revealed a lost urban landscape, but also a unique intersection of human activity and natural forces. Layers of silt and sediment preserve streets, docks, and artifacts, offering extraordinary insight into trade, governance, and daily life. Yet these same layers complicate interpretation. How much of the city's design and purpose can be reconstructed when water has shifted, statues have tilted, and organic material has decayed? And what might still lie hidden, entombed under meters of mud and sand, waiting for patient investigation? Heracleion also challenges assumptions about human interaction with the environment. Its proximity to the Nile Delta and the Mediterranean meant that its people had to manage flooding, shifting channels, and maritime navigation, all while constructing monumental architecture. The surviving harbors suggest an understanding of tidal patterns and water management that rivals contemporary coastal engineering. Could the city's designers have anticipated or miscalculated the forces that ultimately claimed it? And what other lost cities along similar coasts may still remain hidden beneath the waves, their stories preserved silently in sediment? Exploring Heracleion today, one is struck by a sense of both wonder and melancholy. Sunlight filtering through the water illuminates colossal statues, fragments of temples, and long buried streets, creating an almost ethereal tableau. It is a city suspended between worlds, past and present, land and sea, memory and discovery. The preservation of these artifacts provides a tangible connection to a society that thrived, traded, worshipped, and eventually succumbed to natural forces beyond its control. Yet for all we have uncovered, the city retains an aura of mystery. What lies beneath Heracleon's waters that has yet to be revealed? Are there chambers of temples untouched by excavation, inscriptions that could rewrite our understanding of ancient Mediterranean culture, or sacred relics still resting quietly under silt? And what does the city's abrupt disappearance tell us about the fragility of human endeavor in the face of nature's power? Heracleion, like Tiwanaku and Derinkuyu before it, reminds us that the past is not fully known, that history can vanish and resurface, and that mysteries often linger in the silent spaces between stone, water, and memory. As we rise from the depths and look across the Mediterranean toward the coastline where Heracleion once bustled with life, the city remains both revealed and concealed, a testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and vulnerability. It is a place where commerce, religion, and natural forces converged, leaving behind a silent, submerged world that continues to inspire wonder, research, and reflection. What other secrets of Heracleion remain hidden beneath the waves, and what stories might these ruins tell to those patient enough to uncover them? From the submerged streets and temples of Heracleion, where a once thriving Mediterranean port rests silently beneath layers of silt, our journey now carries us across the sea to the Maltese archipelago, where an even older and more enigmatic mystery lies hidden beneath the earth. The Hypogeum of Val Camonica, an underground complex that challenges our understanding of ancient architecture, ritual, and human history. Here, in the subterranean chambers carved from solid limestone, lie not only intricate passageways and ceremonial halls, but also the remnants of a people whose physical presence has provoked debate and fascination for decades. The so-called Hypogeum Giants. Discovered in 1902 during routine excavation, the Hypogeum is a multi-level necropolis dating back to approximately 3,300 to 3000 BCE. Its labyrinthine structure stretches 3 stories deep, with chambers, corridors, and recesses designed with astonishing precision. Among the many burials and skeletal remains recovered from its chambers, some human skeletons are unusually large, significantly taller and more robust than typical populations of the same period. These remains, reaching over 2 meters in length, have been at the center of fascination and speculation, raising questions about the inhabitants of this ancient sanctuary. Were these individuals an extraordinary subset of the population, a symbolic representation of revered ancestors, or evidence of a lost line of unusually large humans? The Hypogeum itself is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. Carved entirely from solid rock, its corridors and chambers demonstrate careful planning, acoustical understanding, and spiritual intent. Some chambers are aligned so that natural sunlight or artificial illumination during certain times of year accentuates specific areas, suggesting sophisticated ceremonial or calendrical knowledge. The largest chamber, known as the Oracle Room, exhibits remarkable acoustic properties, where a whisper or chant can resonate throughout the space. Could these architectural choices reflect a deliberate connection to spiritual practices, or even to the presence of extraordinary individuals, like the Hypogeum Giants themselves? Skeletal remains found within the Hypogeum show a diversity of sizes, but the larger skeletons stand out for their robust bone structure. Suggesting unusual strength and stature, mainstream explanations generally attribute these to natural genetic variation, environmental factors, or errors in measurement. Yet the consistency of reports of exceptionally large individuals, coupled with the ceremonial context of their interment, fuels continued speculation. Were these individuals leaders, shamans, or figures of extraordinary importance in their society? And if so, how did their presence shape the rituals, construction, and purpose of the Hypogeum itself? The context of the burials is as compelling as the physical remains. The Hypogeum functioned as a necropolis, a sanctuary for the dead, and perhaps also as a ritual center for the living. Artifacts recovered include pottery, figurines, and intricately carved altars, hinting at a spiritual or ceremonial dimension that transcended ordinary burial practices. Could the larger skeletons represent a symbolic or sacred role within this belief system, elevated in both life and death? Or were they simply members of a population whose extraordinary physicality has left us with more questions than answers? Speculative theories surrounding the Hypogeum. Giants often extend beyond the conventional archaeological framework. Some propose that these individuals were remnants of a lost human lineage, unusually tall and robust, possibly coexisting alongside more typical populations. Others suggest that their size was exaggerated in oral tradition or myth, inspiring subsequent legends of giants in Malta and surrounding regions. While evidence is limited, the presence of these unusually large skeletons, combined with the Hypogeum's sophisticated construction, invites inquiry into the limits of prehistoric human capability, both physically and intellectually. The engineering of the Hypogeum itself is worthy of fascination. Its multi-level chambers are connected by sloping corridors, intricate niches, and stairways carved with care into limestone, supporting both weight and stability over millennia. Ventilation shafts ensure airflow deep underground, and chambers are carefully proportioned to create an eerie yet harmonious spatial experience. The builders achieved a level of structural mastery that raises questions about knowledge transfer, labor organization, and the societal importance of this sacred space. Were the Hypogeum Giants themselves participants in or overseers of its construction, or were they venerated after death, their stature a reflection of spiritual or social hierarchy? Even today, the Hypogeum holds secrets that are only partially revealed. Access is limited to preserve its delicate structures, and many chambers remain off-limits or partially unexplored. As a result, the full story of the Hypogeum Giants, their numbers, social roles, and relationship to the broader community remains tantalizingly out of reach. Are there undiscovered chambers containing additional remains, artifacts, or inscriptions that could illuminate the lives of these extraordinary individuals? And how did the society that constructed such an intricate underground world conceptualize the intersection of physical form, spiritual practice, and the afterlife? The Hypogeum Giants compel us to reconsider assumptions about prehistoric human populations and their capabilities. They suggest that our understanding of physical norms, social organization, and ceremonial practices may be incomplete. The combination of monumental subterranean architecture and anomalously large individuals evokes both admiration and profound curiosity, bridging the domains of archaeology, anthropology, and human imagination. As we walk the dimly lit corridors of the Hypogeum, imagining the figures who once moved through them, a palpable sense of presence lingers in the stone. The chambers echo with questions. Were these giants exceptional individuals, spiritual leaders, or symbolic representations? Did their stature inspire the intricate construction of the Hypogeum, or did the architecture reflect broader cosmological beliefs into which they were integrated? And what other mysteries lie hidden in the limestone, awaiting discovery by those patient enough to explore this subterranean world? The Hypogeum Giants, like Heracleion and Derinkuyu before them, remind us that the past is not fully revealed. It challenges us to reconcile evidence, speculation, and imagination, and to confront the possibility that some stories of human history remain partially hidden, encoded in stone, bone, and memory, waiting silently for those who dare to uncover them. From the subterranean chambers of Malta, where the Hypogeum Giants whisper of extraordinary humans and ancient ceremonial mastery, our journey carries us across vast oceans to the remote islands of Micronesia, where another enigmatic marvel emerges from the water and jungle. Nan Madol, the so-called Venice of the Pacific. Here, on a series of artificial islets straddling the eastern shore of Pohnpei, rise massive stone structures, temples, and tombs, intricately arranged along a labyrinth of canals. The scale and audacity of this city, constructed long before modern machinery, evoke awe and questions in equal measure. Nan Madol was the ceremonial and political center of the Saudeleur dynasty, which ruled Pohnpei from roughly 500 to 1600 CE. The city stretches across more than 90 artificial islets, created by piling enormous basalt logs and stones to form foundations that rise above the lagoon massive walls. Some composed of basalt columns weighing several tons, were stacked with a precision that defies easy explanation. How did the Saudeleur engineers quarry, transport, and place these monolithic stones across channels and mangrove swamps without cranes or iron tools? The ingenuity required seems to border on the impossible, raising questions about the methods, organization, and knowledge of this lost civilization. The layout of Nan Madol suggests deliberate planning, combining functionality, ritual, and symbolism. The artificial islets host royal compounds, tombs, and temples, separated by a network of canals wide enough to accommodate canoes, allowing water to flow through the city like streets in a living organism. The largest structures, including tombs of the ruling elite, contain enormous basalt stones meticulously fitted together, often without mortar, in a technique known as dry stone masonry. How did a society limited to traditional tools achieve such precision, stability, and architectural harmony over centuries? Archaeological studies suggest that the city was constructed over several generations, with labor likely organized under a centralized authority. Yet the sheer scale of stone moved and the complexity of the canals and foundations remain extraordinary. Some stones weigh up to 50 tons, far exceeding what seems feasible for manual transport alone. Were there methods, lost to history, that allowed the Saudeleur to maneuver such colossal blocks? Did the city's layout encode knowledge of tides, currents, or even astronomical events? And what was the symbolic significance of placing tombs and temples upon isolated islets within a labyrinthine water network? Speculation extends further when considering the city's sudden decline. Historical records and oral traditions recount that the Saudeleur rulers became increasingly tyrannical, prompting their overthrow by the returning non-Sapw leaders. Yet questions persist. Was the abandonment of Nan Madol solely political, or did environmental factors, rising sea levels, erosion, or shifts in water currents, play a role in rendering the city untenable? Could the intricacy of its canals and foundations have made maintenance increasingly difficult over time, contributing to its eventual abandonment? The combination of human and natural factors may explain the decline, yet the full picture remains elusive. The stones themselves inspire awe and curiosity. Basalt columns, some over 4 meters long, were shaped from volcanic rock found miles away. They were transported across difficult terrain and carefully stacked to form walls that have resisted centuries of tropical weather and rising tides. Some researchers suggest ingenious methods such as rolling logs, levers, or rafts, yet no definitive explanation exists. Could there have been knowledge of hydraulics, counterweights, or techniques now lost to time that allowed the construction of such a city in a swampy, tidal environment? Nan Madol's spiritual and ceremonial aspects add another layer of mystery. Temples and tombs dominate the central islets, hinting at a culture deeply attuned to the sacred and the political. The elaborate nature of the structures, the deliberate placement of stones, and the isolation of elite tombs suggest a society in which power, ritual, and environment were intertwined. Were the rulers buried in these tombs simply political leaders, or were they considered semi-divine figures whose resting places required such monumental and isolated constructions? And how did the spiritual beliefs of the Saudeleur influence the design, orientation, and engineering of this extraordinary city? Despite extensive archaeological investigation, much of Nan Madol remains unexplored. Dense vegetation, challenging waters, and the fragile nature of the ruins limit access, leaving large sections hidden or partially documented. What secrets lie in the unexcavated islets? Could they contain further clues about construction techniques, social organization, or ceremonial practice? And what might these discoveries reveal about the technological and cultural sophistication of a society that created a city seemingly beyond the reach of conventional engineering? The city's enduring presence amidst the lagoon and jungle evokes both wonder and humility. Standing on the basalt foundations, gazing across the maze of canals and islets, one senses the deliberate artistry and ambition of its builders. Nan Madol challenges assumptions about what is possible without modern tools, and invites reflection on the ingenuity, vision, and societal organization required to create such a feat. Nan Madol, like the Hypogeum of Malta and Heracleion beneath the waves, reminds us that the past is filled with accomplishments and enigmas that push the limits of our understanding. How did the Sodelur move stones weighing tens of tons, construct canals across shifting tides, and organize labor with such precision? What other stories of social hierarchy, ritual, and lost knowledge remain submerged within the city's labyrinthine waterways? And as the tides lap against these ancient foundations, what secrets does the water still guard, whispering to those patient enough to listen? As the sun sets over the lagoon, casting long shadows across the basalt walls and reflecting off the calm waters threading through the islets, Nan Madol remains a silent testament to human ingenuity, ambition, and mystery. It is a place where the natural world, architectural mastery, and ceremonial life converge, leaving questions unanswered, challenges unsolved, and wonders waiting to be rediscovered. From the remote waterways and basalt foundations of Nan Madol, where human ingenuity and mystery intertwine in the labyrinth of artificial islets, our journey returns to the timeless sands of Egypt, to the ancient city of Abydos. Here, among the temples and sanctuaries dedicated to Osiris and other deities, lies an enigmatic carving that has captured the imagination of researchers, tourists, and skeptics alike. The so-called helicopter hieroglyphs, a cluster of images that appear at first glance to depict modern aerial vehicles long before the invention of flight. Located on the temple walls of Seti I, who ruled in the 13th century BCE, these carvings are part of a vast and intricate relief celebrating the pharaoh's reign, victories, and divine legitimacy. Among rows of meticulously rendered hieroglyphs, depicting gods, animals, and royal iconography, are a series of overlapping shapes that resemble contemporary helicopters, submarines, and even aircraft-like machines. The first reaction is one of astonishment. How could such imagery exist in an era of chariots, sails, and stone architecture? Mainstream Egyptology attributes this phenomenon to a phenomenon known as palimpsest, where repeated carving and recarving of stone over centuries produces shapes that coincidentally resemble modern objects. Over time, older inscriptions were plastered, recarved, or modified, leaving behind superimposed lines that create optical illusions of machinery. Scholars suggest that what appears to be a helicopter is actually a layering of older hieroglyphs, including traditional symbols for the throne, crossbars, or other ritualistic signs. Yet, even accounting for erosion, plaster, and recarving, the clarity and suggestive forms of these hieroglyphs continue to provoke curiosity. How did ancient artisans, working entirely within a symbolic and religious framework, produce images that resemble objects entirely foreign to their time? The craftsmanship of Abydos is indisputable. Seti I's temple is renowned for its precision, scale, and artistic sophistication. Reliefs are carved with delicate detail, showing not only the king's visage and ceremonial regalia, but also scenes of daily life, military campaigns, and religious ritual. The helicopter hieroglyphs are part of a broader tradition of Egyptian symbolic writing, Yet their peculiar forms stand out as anomalous, raising questions about perception, interpretation, and human tendency to find familiar shapes in abstract patterns. Could these shapes have had a symbolic meaning lost to history, perhaps representing divine or celestial forces rather than technological artifacts? Speculation around the hieroglyphs has fueled a spectrum of interpretations. Some propose that they are evidence of ancient knowledge of flight or advanced technology, a theory often associated with alternative archaeology. Others argue that the carvings were a creative representation of power, divine authority, or cosmic order, encoded in forms deliberately ambiguous to communicate layers of meaning to both contemporaries and future observers. The temple itself emphasizes the pharaoh's connection to the gods, suggesting that the carvings, however enigmatic, were primarily spiritual and ceremonial rather than technical illustrations. The visual impact of the carvings cannot be denied. From certain angles, the overlapping lines and shapes form strikingly recognizable silhouettes. Yet the context, Egyptian ritual, layered inscriptions, and centuries of wear, reminds us that perception alone can mislead. How much of what we interpret as extraordinary is shaped by modern experience and expectation? And conversely, could the ancient artisans have intentionally left traces of ambiguity, perhaps as a way to encode secret knowledge, spiritual truths, or esoteric symbolism? The process of creating such reliefs was painstaking. Stone was carved using copper tools, abrasives, and remarkable precision, a labor-intensive process demanding skill, planning, and artistic vision. Each hieroglyph had meaning, and the placement, proportion, and relationship of symbols conveyed messages intelligible to a literate Egyptian audience. Yet centuries later, the interplay of plaster, recarving, and natural erosion has created forms that resonate with a modern eye as something extraordinary, almost prophetic. Could these anomalies have been entirely accidental, or do they reflect an underlying sophistication in symbolic thinking that transcends time? Even today, the helicopter hieroglyphs continue to inspire debate and exploration. They are a reminder that history is layered, not only in the literal sense of recarved stone, but also in the interpretive lens through which we view the past. What did the ancient Egyptians intend, and what has been inadvertently revealed by the passage of time and human curiosity? Could similar anomalies exist elsewhere, unnoticed amidst the countless temples, tombs, and monuments scattered along the Nile? The Abydos hieroglyphs invite us to consider the intersection of artistry, symbolism, and perception. They challenge assumptions about what ancient civilizations could or could not conceive. And they remind us that the past often presents mysteries not only in what is found, but also in how it is seen. Are these carvings purely coincidental, a product of layered inscriptions and the human tendency to see patterns, or could they be remnants of knowledge, symbolism, or understanding that we are only beginning to grasp? As the sunlight filters across the limestone walls of Abydos, illuminating both the ordinary and the anomalous in the temple reliefs, the helicopter hieroglyphs stand as silent witnesses to a civilization whose artistic vision, spiritual devotion, and intellectual depth continue to captivate us. They are a fragment of a larger puzzle, part of a long human story in which interpretation, perception, and curiosity converge. And as we peer into these enigmatic carvings, the question remains: what did the ancient Egyptians truly intend to convey, and how much of their world is still waiting for us to see with clarity? From the sunlit limestone walls of Abydos, where the helicopter hieroglyphs intrigue and confound, we return to the rugged landscapes of Malta, revisiting a land rich with enigmas and ancient engineering. Among its cliffs, valleys, and rocky plains, one of the island's most puzzling features stretches silently across the stone: the cart ruts. These parallel grooves, carved deep into the bedrock crisscross the landscape in patterns that defy easy explanation, leaving observers to wonder how, when, and why they were created. The ruts are narrow, typically around a foot wide and deep enough to suggest repeated wear or intentional cutting. They stretch for hundreds of meters, often converging, diverging, or even descending sheer cliffs into the sea. Some appear to form complex networks across the islands, connecting fertile valleys, ancient quarries, and coastal access points. Yet their precise purpose remains elusive. Were they tracks for wheeled vehicles, channeled routes for transporting massive stones, or part of a system of ritual pathways used in ceremonies long forgotten? Dating the cart ruts has proven challenging. Unlike monuments carved in isolation, these grooves blend with the natural terrain, subject to erosion, flooding, and agricultural activity. Estimates suggest they may span thousands of years, but no definitive chronology has been established. The lack of associated artifacts or inscriptions leaves their origins shrouded in mystery. How could early inhabitants, limited to primitive tools and local knowledge, carve such uniform and extensive tracks into solid rock? And why do some ruts abruptly end at cliff edges, defying practical explanation? Mainstream archaeology proposes that the ruts were created by repeated passage of carts or sleds, transporting stone, produce, or other heavy loads. Yet this explanation raises further questions. The width of some grooves seems incompatible with standard wheel spacing, while others descend steep, nearly impassable slopes. The sheer depth of certain ruts suggests that the process continued over generations, yet the cumulative wear does not fully align with known settlement patterns. Could they have served multiple purposes, evolving over centuries, from practical transport to ceremonial or symbolic use? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that the ruts mark sacred or ritual pathways, a kind of prehistoric labyrinth etched into the earth. Others propose that they represent a lost technological knowledge, an ancient method of moving enormous stones across uneven terrain, possibly using water, lubricants, or other forgotten techniques. The sudden disappearance of some tracks into the sea hints at changing coastlines, erosion, or even catastrophic events that may have reshaped the landscape, leaving the original purpose obscured. The physicality of the cart ruts is striking. In certain locations, they appear to have been carved with remarkable precision, running in parallel lines over irregular rock surfaces, through gullies and valleys, and around natural obstacles. In some areas, intersections suggest planning, perhaps indicating a transportation network or organized system. Yet in others, the grooves seem haphazard, descending slopes at sharp angles or terminating abruptly without connection to known settlements or quarries. Was there an intentional design, or are these variations the result of centuries of natural erosion and human adaptation? The rut's connection to Malta's broader prehistoric landscape deepens the mystery. They intersect with megalithic temples, ancient quarries, and sacred sites, suggesting a society capable of both monumental construction and subtle manipulation of the terrain. Could the tracks have been part of a logistical system for moving the massive megaliths used in temples such as Hagar Chim and Manajdra? Or do they reflect an older, now lost culture whose methods, technology, and societal structures are yet to be fully understood? In some coastal areas, cart ruts appear to vanish into the water, as if continuing underwater. These submerged tracks evoke speculation about rising sea levels or dramatic geological changes since their creation. Did the original builders anticipate shifts in the coastline, or were these tracks abandoned as the land itself changed? And if submerged sections exist, might further study reveal more about their continuity, purpose, or even the society that carved them? Even today, the cart ruts resist definitive interpretation. They challenge conventional assumptions about prehistoric engineering, transportation, and societal organization. Observers are compelled to reconcile practicality with symbolism, utility with ritual, and repetition with intention. Could the tracks encode knowledge about trade routes, territorial boundaries, or spiritual journeys? Or are they primarily utilitarian, their patterns shaped by environmental factors, geological conditions, and centuries of human adaptation? Walking along the ruts, one cannot help but feel a connection to the hands that carved them, to the countless journeys taken along their grooves, and to the culture that left them behind. Each parallel line and abrupt descent hints at ingenuity, effort, and purpose. Yet the original intent remains concealed by time. The cart ruts of Malta, like the hieroglyphs of Abydos and the foundations of Nan Madol, speak of human ambition and mystery, of achievements and knowledge that are partially lost to history. As the sun casts long shadows across the rocky terrain, the grooves appear almost alive, guiding the eye along paths both practical and enigmatic. They remind us that history is not only recorded in monuments and texts, but also etched into the earth itself. What stories do these ruts tell about Malta's earliest inhabitants, their technology, and their worldview? And what secrets lie hidden in the grooves yet to be explored, waiting for patient observers to trace the lines and perhaps glimpse the ingenuity of a civilization long vanished?